The show is truly very cheesy and very cliched, but I don't care. I'm here for it.
The music, the visuals, and then of course the story writing was just so fucking good. It's like, wow, this is really satisfying. Something I look forward to.
Like, don't make me have to start thinking about should I feel bad for Kreese or not. Like, don't make me do that.
And she decks him. Like, she goes, I don't give a shit what you like. You're a sociopath, and I'm going to take you down if it's the last thing I do. And storms out. I was just like, whoa!
Damn, that just happened.
You betrayed my sensei, you're going to fucking die. Like, come here, bring me your arm, fucking F it off. Like,
you've offended my family, and you've offended a Shaolin temple.
That's right. Greetings, Long Walkers. Dave here to intro episode 88 of Long Walk Short Drink. 88, as in 1988, the year that Bloodsport came out. The Jean-Claude Van Damme came fucking spin helicopter jump kicking his way into all of our hearts as Frank Dukes. It was the year that gave us Die Hard, Tequila Sunrise, the film, not the song, Married to the Mob, Dangerous Liaisons. Michelle Pfeiffer had 3 fucking masterpieces come out this year. Martin Scorsese's The Last Temptation of Christ came out. What else you want? I don't really know what was happening with music that year, but I can tell you on television, my favorite midnight matinee show of all time, other than The Mind of Philip, starring our own Palmer, was Frank and Drac, which was on WOIO, Channel 19 in Northeast Ohio in 1988. And it was a Frankenstein monster and Dracula kind of comedy duo. And they showed the old Universal films. That's where I first saw, and they showed them in order. So like Frankenstein through Ghost of Frankenstein. Then they started The Wolfman through House of Dracula. Oh, it's glorious. In 1988, I started making my first films. I mean, of course, they were on home video, but I just so happened to have seen like the Frankenstein films, the first 2, Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, on home video. Prior to Frank and Drac starting. So I made 2 versions, made my parents film me as me and Moto, who you hear, my younger brother here, hear his voice later in the show. We filmed 2 versions of Frankenstein. We did one. I wasn't nuts about it. We did it again. I don't know, maybe a couple months later. Then the same for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Well, I filmed it once, and then again a couple months later. And I think by the summer, it moved on to summer, which would have been like 1989, so we'll save that. But anyway, but so much that I love Frank and Drac that in the second version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, we actually did a Frank and Drac kind of commercial break interludes. Oh my God. Anyway, moving on. Another Fox television show, Werewolf, which actually, oddly enough, comes up in this episode, but none of the rest of what I just mentioned does. We're going to be talking Cobra Kai 3 today. Like a lot about it, and I get all kinds of fired up talking about this show and this season in particular. So as I may have mentioned, I'm not sure, we are joined by my brother Moto, who is a Cobra Kai super fan, and we start the show by getting into just a little bit of catch up and with Moto, who we haven't talked to for a little while, as well as talking about some pinball deal that Palmer might be making, and he mentions like his dream for a pinball parlor / sandwich shop, which you'll hear about briefly. But if you're just here for the Cobra Kai, I understand. What you'll want to do is just skip ahead about 26 minutes into the conversation after I finish this intro, which I'll endeavor to make very brief. Spoilers, we absolutely loved this season. Sure, I may have a critical comment here or there, but nothing's perfect, except maybe Kumiko. Speaking of Karate Kid characters, we do spoil everything about what happens in Season 3, so if you haven't already or think you might want to, watch it on Netflix before listening. We do also have robust episodes dedicated to Seasons 1 and 2 of the show, so Long Walk Short Drink episode 52. We actually discussed both the Karate Kid films and the first season of Cobra Kai. And in episode 70, we talk all about season 2. So it's pretty much this. I think Twinkie joins us on that first one as well. So there you go. Just before we jump into the show, a couple quick reminders. My 17th annual mix album, Conscience Calls, is available online to stream. I did a Spotify link this year, or Spotify playlist this year, which I would recommend if you use that as a premium user. I'm not subscribed to any streaming services because I don't know, a little Johnny Lawrence in that way. But what I have noticed in other people sharing theirs is if you listen on a web browser, you get the right order. And the order is pretty important to me, though it may not be to you. However, if you are not a premium user and you click this Spotify link that is on davidallman.net/2020mix, it's going to get jumbled and it's going to kill me to know that's happening. So if you're not a Spotify premium user, please just listen on Mixcloud or the link at davidallman.net/2020mix. This is, though it's my 17th annual mix album, this is actually one of my favorites, even though it chronicles a pretty turbulent time. It's interesting that kind of the coronavirus has sort of forced a worldwide shared experience, and there's a chronology in the songs that I think will resonate with you, even when the music itself might not. It's certainly the most diverse collection of songs I've ever assembled, and it's the only time I can recall that all of the entries had actually been released in the calendar year represented. So just to kind of recap or introduce this to you if you're new, every year since 2004, I've been kind of creating like this. It's a mix album, but it's really like kind of personal and idiosyncratic. And then I write up, it's a little bit of it's a very oddly intimate and personal practice that I've come to share with people. Whatever. So you can read, if you're curious about that tradition, you can read and link to all 17 years of music at davidallman.net/mix albums. But this year, so now what I didn't have last episode that I do now is the liner notes. And yeah, sure, they're 4,300 words, and you don't they're not required reading. You don't have to read them all. I do it by song. So if you really just need clarity on why there's a New Kids on the Block quarantine song, you can go there and see me sort of justify it. I don't need to justify myself, do you? What am I saying? I hope you find something or are reminded of something there that adds something positive to your life. So. And then one last thing is that you can still watch the late 90s adaptation of The Crow that I made with our buddy Jackson on the Lunch Meat VHS YouTube channel. It has not been taken down by the powers that be or whatever, so watch it while you can. Here's it's a treacherous thing to read comments on the internet, but the feedback here has been quite good. So, for instance, Anna Stan says, "Oh, lordy, this is so beautiful. Such a majestic tribute to both the graphic novel and the subsequent movie. Just all caps. Gorgeous." A little qualification from Chaos Magician Cody. For a 1998 fan film, holy cow, was that amazing. From Masterclass TV, this is easily one of the best fan films ever produced, and I've seen many. My own affinity for VHS notwithstanding, the videography is fantastic. Tight editing, solid performances, and so much love and respect for the source material. Really, should this ever find its way to VHS once again, I'm totally getting a copy. Fantastic work. Well, stay tuned, Masterclass TV, that is in the works. Supposedly the documentary will come out this winter from Lunch Meat VHS on cassette tape, a very limited run, and there might be the adaptation tagged on at the end if we can figure out a way to fly under the radar with that. All right. So that's all for now for my shameless self-promoting. Let's get to the conversation we had with Moto, Palmer, and myself about Cobra Kai Season 3.
I might be doing a pinball deal. I was talking to a
Really?
guy. I was actually worried I was going to be late because I was talking to this guy. But it seems like we're doing a pretty good deal, and so that is pretty awesome.
What kind of a deal?
I'm trading. I don't know. So I traded Star Wars for an Attack from Mars that matched. So I traded Jurassic Park. Oh man, this is talk about long walk for a short drink.
In the right place.
So Yeah. So all right, Monster Bash?
Yeah.
How it has the like extra big screen and it's got the topper and like the really awesome lighting effects and all that stuff,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah.
So they did that same treatment to two other machines from the 90s, to Medieval Madness and Attack from Mars. Both of those, like all three of those for the longest time were like the top three, considered the top three pinball machines.
Mm-hmm.
The rights to them are owned by the same company. And this company, when pinball started being hot again, decided to reissue these games with modern electronics inside of them and update all that stuff, bigger screen, better speakers, toppers, all that stuff. And so the Medieval Madness got the same treatment that Monster Bash got, and I really wanted that, so I traded Jurassic Park for one of those. And then when I did that, I had already owned this Attack from Mars limited edition once already, but the guy who he sold it to, because he's a distributor, the guy he sold it to like fully decked it out with all these mods, and he had both of them. And I was like, oh, I'll trade you my Star Wars for that Attack from Mars. And so he did that. I got those machines, and I have all three of these machines that kind of gotten the same modernization, and they're all lined up and they look really awesome all lined up. But the one I just don't play very much. So that's that Attack from Mars. So there's a guy in Indianapolis he's going to trade. I'm going to put a little cash with it, but I'm going to get his Twilight Zone, which is there's a particular pinball designer, and that's considered like his masterpiece. In the early 90s, he made the like hottest selling pinball machine ever. It sold like 18,000 units. So Williams was like, you can do anything you want for your next game, you and your team. And so he did Twilight Zone, and like they spent 2 years developing it and like threw everything they could think of in it. And there's actually like a miniature play field with no flippers. There's just magnets, and the magnets act like flippers. So it just looks like the balls are like flipping on their own, but there's actually magnets underneath doing it. Like it's crazy, all the stuff that it has. So he's going to trade Twilight Zone and then this other one called Champion Pub, which is like a boxing themed pinball machine. And this one, listen to some of the shit this has on it. It's got this thing where a wire that rotates around like a jump rope, and the ball actually hops. You have to jump over that thing as many times as you can.
Oh, cool.
And then in the other upper corner, there's a speed bag and two little fists. And when you get the ball up there, you have to bounce the ball into the speed bag. And then when you start a fight, the heavy bag in the middle of the playfield spins around, and there's actually a guy with arms. And you have a power meter. You have to hit him so many times before he swings his fists so many times and knocks you out. So it's actually like you're in a boxing match. It's pretty awesome. So
Mama said he's going out.
Yeah, exactly. So he's going to trade those two machines for my Attack from Mars and a little bit of cash. And I've been wanting to get that designer of Twilight Zone. His name's Pat Lawler. I've been wanting to get one of his games. I had one a while ago, and I wasn't as good of a player, so I didn't appreciate it as much because it was brutal. So I've been wanting to bring one of his games back into my collection for a while. And I'm glad that it's going to be Twilight Zone. So in Champion Pub, my dream is to own a pinball parlor sandwich shop and like feed people and just talk and play pinball all day in between like making them sandwiches. And I want to name it Knuckle Sandwich. And
that's awesome.
So Knuckle Sandwich and Pinball Parlor is what I want to call it. But have Champion Pub as like the centerpiece of that collection because it's a boxing game, So.
Wow.
It's a great vision.
Wait, so there are so many games in there, or boards, or what's the machines, pinball machines that you mentioned. Remind me again which one you're going to get.
I'm going to get Twilight Zone and Champion Pub.
Both. Oh, wow. That's great.
So, and then I'm getting rid of Attack from Mars.
Okay.
So this guy really wants an Attack from Mars. And like this one I'm trading is like, it's decked out. It's got like tons of mods on it and looks beautiful. It looks like a piece of art. I mean, you know what Monster Bash looks like. Yeah. So imagine that, but it's Martian themed. So there's like a giant like UFO in the center and a bunch of smaller UFOs around it, and then all these like jiggly armed Martians around the play field that like hop up and down during certain points of the game. So it's really it is an awesome game. It's just those 3 games have very similar play fields. So their play style is very similar. And I personally feel like the other 2, Medieval Madness and Monster Bash, have better toys. Like that's all those mechanical things that are on the play field that they call them toys. Mm-hmm. The toys are better on those 2 titles. So I just don't feel myself playing Attack from Mars as much as I should. Yeah. It's too beautiful of a machine not to be appreciated and played. And you appreciate them by playing them. Mm-hmm. I don't believe in buying pinball machines just to sit and like be an art piece. They're intended to be played. You know, just like I don't get guys that spend a bunch of money on cars and never drive them. They're cars. Drive them. You know,
well, that's what I thought. Maybe do they work better if you use them more often, sort of thing?
It's possible, but the more you use them, the more maintenance you're going to have to do. So it's
double,
you know, yeah. So same with a car, you know, but a car does like my dad used to always say, like, the worst thing you can do to a car is let it sit.
Yeah.
So
run.
Yep. So, and I do believe there's some of that. I mean, in the electronics and everything, you can get corrosion, and if you're regularly playing it, you're going to be regularly maintaining it in some fashion, which hopefully you're going to stay on top of those things that could creep up and really damage a game. The one nice thing I can say with the modern games, like the games that have been coming out within the last 5 years, is like, you know, and like these 2 that I'm going to be getting, there's probably 8 circuit boards in the back box, you know, plus there's circuit boards underneath the play field as well, plus all the mechanical stuff. And these new modern machines, it's like those 8 circuit boards that are in that back box, they've shrunk those all down to 1. It's like this one board does the work of all those boards before, because it's just new electronics that are like microscopic, and like machines can weld that teeny tiny piece onto that circuit board and shrink it all down. So
in theory, it's more solid because there's less.
Yeah. And this is also a double-edged sword. The nice thing about those old boards is I could work on them if I needed to. Like, you can buy components and desolder them and pull the bad components out and put new ones in. If you're skilled enough to do that, that is not something that I recommend just anybody trying to do. I don't even like to do it if I can absolutely avoid it. But there's some people that are really comfortable for that. So they don't like the new machines because you can't do that with the new machines. You have to have really special equipment that's really, really expensive to be able to like take those components. I mean, and on top of having like microscopes and tweezer, like these little microscopic tweezers to like take those components off, because they are that small. It's surface mount soldering. It's the circuit board is actually like 8 or 10 layers thick. And each one of those layers has different like circuits running through it. That's like, they take all those boards and stack them together. And then those components are just soldered right onto the surface. So like a fuse that's in my games from the 90s, that's like, looks like a normal car fuse, like the glass tube with the 2 silver ends.
Yep.
That's in there. On these modern machines, this fuse is like, I can't even put my fingers close. They touch before I would get how actually small that same fuse is that's on those boards.
Get it.
So there's a couple
to get it in and out.
Yeah, no, exactly. You gotta grip it really strong and like get it hot. It's gotta get really hot too, but not too hot because of friction and like.
I'm sitting at this old desk at this computer, and it's carved out the 80s television style werewolf.
Oh my god!
I moved the keyboard just a little bit. This werewolf. Oh, Dave's been back here.
Dave carved werewolf stuff.
Marks.
Yep.
He used to find slash marks on the trees where he'd cut, like where like an animal would go through, and there'd be Caro syrup for the blood.
Yeah. You know what's super embarrassing about that is that I did that in like 1991, not the
80s. You were practicing your effects. You were like, "When I use this in a movie,"
that's a very generous way of putting it. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's badass about your pinball games, Palmer.
Yeah.
Basically, the 2 that you want, you're getting.
Yeah,
like the 2 highest on your latest scale.
This guy is really making a fantastic deal, and I've totally acknowledged that. I'm really bad at dealing because I'm too honest and too transparent. I've talked plenty of people out of deals because I've just been too honest, you know. And
I know what you're talking about.
So I was totally upfront. I'm like, dude, you are making me a fantastic deal. He's like, I'm not saying you're getting, he's even acknowledged I'm not getting perfect machines. There's going to be some tinkering that's going to need done on them. But like in the end, like it is a great deal. But he's getting a beautiful machine too. So, and he'll play it, which is what I really appreciate. So, it just, you got to be really, it's like any other community. If you're doing any kind of bartering or selling like that, where you have to like, you can't just jump into a transaction with every person that's willing. You have to really wait until you find somebody that's going to be willing to like make sure you're happy, and you want to make sure they're happy when it's all said and done. And
I've avoided these type of experiences.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another way where deals have fallen through, where I'm just like, you know what? I really don't like, I'm not feeling comfortable right now. So I'm not going to do it. So
it's unique in the pinball world, though. Like, you would have to, how else are you going to find these machines, or how else are you going to, they're older and rare.
Yep. The only way you can get them is, I mean, there are people who are like, yeah, I had it, like that just happened across machines at the late 90s or early 2000s when pinball was collapsing, and they might have been friends with a distributor or some whatever random reason where they were like, oh yeah, they said $300 I could have any of the ones I wanted, and loaded up their basement with them. And then literally those people exist. Like I have heard of collections like that existing, and you can stumble across that, but that's fewer and far between. It really is like, you have to really cycle into the community. I feel like if you are going to come across them, that's perfectly accurate, of course. So, and I always say, like, that community will stay as pure as we keep it. That's what I always tell the people I make deals with. I think that turns some people off too. So, because there is a certain level of like, I've had plenty of people who've acted like used car salesmen when you're trying to work deals, and it's just like, at that point, you're just it's just a margin game. Like, they just want to make sure that they're going to make margin on it. So, or the potential to make margin.
But very niche.
Yeah. But sorry, Irene, you don't have to put any of that pinball shit in there.
No, I like it. I love the knuckle sandwich angle on it. I'm all about it. There's got to be people who I'm interested in that. I'm interested in your pinball progress, even if I can't always track it.
So I'm going to be. I was down one space. I can fit 6 machines in my space, and I was down to 5, and then I was going to use that empty space to kind of be a workspace, so I could, because I have a couple machines that I have a lot of work I want to do to them. I want to restore them. Basically, you can play them now, but I want to restore them back to their like full potential, and I have all the stuff to do that, but not a lot of space to do it. So I was anxious to keep that spot open so I could put a little workbench in to really work on some stuff and do those projects. And this is going to put me back at capacity. Like, I'll be back at 6 machines, but we have some. Did I talk last episode about moving we want to move the TV and stuff upstairs so it's not.
Oh,
like
no.
Yeah, like, so we're trying to move. We have this idea to make the office that I'm sitting in now our spare room, and put our spare bed in it and a dresser, and that's in our plants, because our cats destroy our plants. And then just shut that door and never open it unless we have guests, right? Like, get it, like, of course, clean it, dust it, and all that stuff, but like, keep the animals out, keep that's just literally just a spare room. And then move the TV and a couple chairs and a coffee table upstairs into the other, where the old room I used to record in, right? Like with the comic books and everything. And that be kind of like a living room that's just decentralized. It's not like, we would have to be really intentional if we wanted to go like burn hours in front of the TV.
Oh, interesting.
So, and then like take this bookcase and the record player back downstairs to the living room, and just make that like a workroom, like that main room when you come in the front door, just like you can read down there, like the couch will still be down there so you could read, or I'm going to move my work desk into there, I think, and like the dog cages and stuff will be in there. But that's pretty much all that's going to be in that room. And then if I do that where my work desk is now, I could put that work desk space and still have 6 machines, like the workspace to like work on my pinball stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be a nice switch, and it'll be a good. It's a way that we're really trying to do this, move away from consumption and lean into creation and making stuff and getting projects done. So I think
Awesome.
decentralizing that TV is going to be a big step for us to do that.
Yeah, just physically. Yeah, that's gonna be awesome.
So
you got a chillax work environment then to play right beside it.
Exactly. Well, and I hardly play now just because I'm in that all day for work. I'm in that same room all day for work. And so it's not that I don't want to play pinball. I just want to get out of that room because that's where I've spent the last 8 hours. So, so it'll be nice to like get my work out of that room for sure.
Well, the pinball machines, like they're in that space when you first come in, like right off the stairs. Will those go back and be right off the kitchen?
Oh, no. No. So yeah, that's where they are now. We flipped those 2 rooms. We turned that front room back into a living room.
Oh, already? Okay.
Yeah. So that's a living room now. Like, so the TV is right along those stairs. Like as you would be coming down the stairs, it's on that wall. And then the couch is along the wall when you first come in to your right. And then all the pinball machines are lined up against the long wall of that back room.
Ah, so when the pandemic is over and you can have visitors and such and pinball nights, you can basically like roll out the knuckle sandwich pinball parlor, very practically at home.
Oh yeah.
Right off the
absolutely.
kitchen, making sandwiches
Absolutely.
and telling stories.
Absolutely. You're gonna come out from Minnesota for the ribbon cutting ceremony?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. I'll make sandwiches for people and have my like Al's apron on and like
oh my god,
my like undershirt with like a pack of cigarettes rolled up in my. It won't be cigarettes, but like rolled up in my in my sleeve. Probably candy cigarettes or something.
Everyone leaves with the bonsai tree.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. Shit.
You got to get like a half door put in so it can be a little bit like you can serve over top of it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic.
That all sounds wonderful, man. Well, how you doing, Moto?
Doing good.
Jesus, Moto, I haven't seen you
good.
in forever.
Yeah, man. I just been on this new job. December was really tough. I call that peak season for the shipping companies. But now I'm finally back to 5 days a week, so I get 2 days off, and it's a lot more relaxing than normal. I'm just starting to catch up and sleeping and like long hours for fun.
You get up
Sleeping
early.
for fun.
What time do you have to get up to do your shift? It's crazy early.
Most of the time, 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
And then, peak, we were 11:45. I'd wake up for the next morning.
Like 11:45 at night. You'd be getting to go. Oh, Jesus.
And hope they let you go by noon. Because I became more like, I don't know if I want to say where I work. I have to be a lot more different about like work stuff now that I'm with a corporation.
Yeah. That's fair.
But I went through driving school there, so I'm also an air driver. So so not only am I just a loader guy, which I went there to be like a warehouse job. Now I'm also an air driver, so I can be used in more places. So during peak season, they're like, we got you. We got Moto. We're like, they signed me up. Like,
hey, bitch.
I was like, Christmas Eve, I went to leave and literally just clocked out there. Just say goodbye to a couple people. I'm like, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. And the manager's like, don't you leave. Like a WWE wrestler. And I was just like, what? I mean, you guys had so many hours to tell me that, you might want to use me. And I knew things were going weird with, the oncoming air. And I know how that goes. You shuttle it out. And, but I also knew that I could only work till 12 because I started at 12. So I'm technically part-time. So,
yeah.
But I really like it, the exercise and stuff. When it's just simple, move boxes around. I like just that simple environment. And I bring a little speaker and play Pandora and just sweat and then go home. I mean, so when it's the part-time hours, it's a cake job, but peak season was really tough. But good money. Yeah. Got to make money, and I spent money. Mostly UAD.
Yeah.
Well, and our dog. But everything's going good. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I
I'm
imagine.
so happy for you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, I haven't even been there a year yet, but it reminds me, I applied in January of last year, and it wasn't until April that I got hired. So, I ended up working at a different place before working there, and I'm so much more happier to be with this, and with how crazy the year's been for everybody. Mine's just been like go to sleep during the day, wake up at night, go to work, and
Yeah.
my life hasn't changed. I guess I'm lucky for that, and things have actually gotten better with finances and stuff. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, oddly enough, I've had a great year for how terrible it has been, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited about moving forward and just kind of having something steady to keep planning on, and know what to expect, sort of thing.
That's fantastic. Ash and I were just talking recently about how it really, like, one of the suckiest realizations of adulthood is like, I get money doesn't buy happiness, but when they say it does make things easier, it really does.
Oh yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
and that's such a depressing realization to be so
yes. It takes away, like, I don't know, it takes away something.
demystified. It demystifies something about life where you're just like, ugh, I got it. Like, it really is a little bit easier to just have a little bit.
Yeah.
So
If you just get in, it's just finding that thing that works for you. And I don't know, a lot of people change careers and that sort of thing, but
yeah.
yeah, I'm just like Matthew McConaughey from Days Confused, just living, man. LIVIN. And actually, I watched the behind the scenes on that and Dumb and Dumber, which was awesome. But Matthew McConaughey's father had died during the filming of that. He was just a senior in college, and that was soon after the funeral. And they were letting him ad lib on the set, and
Wow.
he said that's something that inspired that. But yeah, it's still awesome. Like high school girls stay the same age. Party at the Moon Tower. That character they said they really didn't expect that character to be such a big role, but he talked about the walk that he brought, and he's like, it wasn't head first, it was what first.
That's exactly how he was. That's hilarious.
So good. And it was, I don't know who the director was of that movie, but it was fun to watch because the only person I know like that is Dave, like these like directors, movie directors that think, and I mean, you and Shamrock, you guys go down that writing avenue and can think those many steps ahead, but maybe Larry, but I didn't know Larry that well. But guys with big aspirations and their budget small, and they bump into the right guy. I think it was Quentin. No, it was a different guy.
Well, the director is Richard Linklater, if that helps.
Okay, yes. Yeah. And I forget the guy that gave him the opportunity. But so anyways, that was fun. Side note.
Dazed and Confused was one of the two movies that made me absolutely despise Ben Affleck for the longest time.
Oh yeah, I still
he played such a great asshole in both that and Mallrats, and those were the first two movies I really saw him in.
Yes. Yeah. And you know why? It's because he is that person. It's just like Rob Lowe. Rob Lowe is that person. That's why he plays a great bad guy. He's just like a bad person. But whatever. People that know Ben Affleck's like he's
hot take on Rob Lowe.
Moto has tried to roll in Cobra Kai like 4 times.
Fuck Ben Affleck. Fuck Rob Lowe.
Just drops a Rob Lowe like, fuck you, Rob Lowe.
Oh, for real. I can't take it. If he's the one talking like the 90s decade stuff, I want to watch it. And it's like, no, it's his voice. I can't do it. Like,
doesn't he play like one of the really sweet characters in the Stan miniseries, or am I remembering that wrong?
Yeah, I can't stand when he plays somebody nice on television.
Yeah, you're like,
I just can't stand his face.
I know just what you mean about
guy who is, oh man, what's his name?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Nick Andrews.
Oh yes, he's the shit. Nick Andrews is deaf mute. Okay, right.
Yeah, he's deaf and mute, and friends with Tom Cullen, MOON, Tom Cullen.
That's so funny. I have my people like that for sure, where I'm just like, fuck them, and they're like, why? It's just like, just because. I've got no good reason. I get a bad vibe.
Can't somebody just make me want to go into a rage?
And it's also, like, if you go on YouTube, you can find videos about Frank Dukes and how much of a liar and shitty of a person he is. And, Steven Seagal, it's like, so Steven Seagal, I don't know, I can see it a lot more. I don't know Frank Dukes, but I know Bloodsport and I love that movie and I don't want that character ruined for me. And that's why you don't meet your heroes. And
you got it. That's some advice to take to the grave. Don't.
Well, I got that for Long Walk Short Drink. Lots of listening. Got me that one.
Oh, now we're meta. There we go.
And that's the thing about this Cobra Kai series that's really good is they take those characters that you love and reintroduce them, and they don't ruin them. They don't ruin those characters. They only expanded upon Johnny and upon Daniel. So
even Kreese though.
Oh,
I don't know that's always good.
Thing about season 3, and that was really
the
enjoyable.
Depth. Like, don't make me have to start thinking about should I feel bad for Kreese or not. Like, don't make me do that. I don't want to have that kind of I just let him be a 2-dimensional bad guy.
Yeah, but it's like Dave knows what's the referee's name that trained him?
Pat Johnson. Yeah,
Pat Johnson.
Yeah.
It's kind of getting in Pat Johnson's head of what is Cobra Kai, and this, kind of shows where his Cobra Kai came from. It's like understanding maybe Hannibal when you understand from their side, and like you said, you're still the murderer. He's still the bad character, but you kind of understand where they came from now. And it just makes more depth to the character.
Yeah,
I thought that was cool.
No, I mean. I am being a little facetious. All of that stuff was really enriching for the show. I felt like, and they are alluding to. Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but there's a like, just like some foreshadowing they did in season 1 and season 2 for a surprise appearance.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they set another surprise appearance up, maybe for somebody from Karate Kid 3.
Yeah, I just watched the 3, and it was like, oh my gosh, that girl reminds me of Sam, the daughter in the newest ones. Like, I can just see the direction that they're going. It's Terry Silver, it's Mike Barnes.
Yeah.
It's like,
they did such a great job of not saying any of those soldiers' names.
Yeah,
and I think part of it was because they're Green Berets, so you're not supposed to know who they are, but they only say his name, because we know we only know him. So all of them say Kreese over and over again, but I kept waiting for them to say Silva or something like that, and you never heard that in any of those. But one of those guys has to be him, right? Like,
he was financing Cobra Kai. I mean, that's what they talk about in Karate Kid 3.
Yep. So, and he said it's good. Like, Kreese saved me, right? So in the war, like we were friends in the war. So. It's a perfect setup, and the one guy I felt like the one guy I thought was him, that's the guy that ended up one of those guys died.
Ended up dying,
and I totally thought that was him leading up to it, and then it ended up not being him. So
I think I had the same thought.
I have a proposal as to and we can abandon this, but just as a way to possibly move through it, I got the Wikipedia page up that has just like a couple sentences that give the story beats for each show.
It's so funny. I have the exact same thing.
Maybe we could even ping pong or something. But then and if it falls apart, but just as a way to move through it, because there's so many details.
And we don't have to give a rundown of each of the episodes.
Not necessarily. No. I have some notes by episode, but I can. So I thought maybe we could just do like a general impressions first, and then maybe try the episode thing and see if that holds, and then just go from there.
Absolutely. You want to kick us off for general impressions?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So my general impression was that I loved it. I didn't love it right away. It has a tonal imbalance for me at times, where it's it's not quite always over the top this one thing, and then sometimes it gets scary violent, and then sometimes it's just a grounded drama. And I really appreciate I so appreciate the respect with which they treat all the original characters, and even when I don't like, or even when something's not resonating for me about what they seem to be trying to do with a storyline. For instance, when the dealership was in trouble because of their reputation, or even some stuff with the kids at times that may not quite work for me. When I realize, or when I see where they're going with it, when the thing kind of pays off, and you're like, that's why they did it. I'm like, I don't care so much that the path wasn't super satisfying at every moment because the payoffs are so good. So I think that's what I'll open with, and that it got better as it went along to a really satisfying conclusion.
They just fit so many different styles into one thing, and they get the age bracket from, could be 15 to 50. They really just gets, because of the old school and new school and blending of the two. It's just smart writing. And I felt like they pulled from a lot of like some of just. It's been a few weeks since I've seen it now. Part of the joy for me is just the fact that you guys watched it and hopefully enjoyed it. And there was times where I'm like, oh my gosh, is this Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Or this is Bloodsport, or this is from Enter the Dragon. When he had the glass at the end, and the way that it's just like they took so much of my childhood or whatever and just blended in a new way. It's so great.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I would probably echo both of you on just about all of that general feeling. I felt like the second season was like this, where the first like 4 to 5 episodes are so soap opera-y, where there's just like that it's almost off-putting for me in a sense. And but it's like they get to that halfway mark and it's like, okay, we got you all of the exposition and the setup, and now it's just going to be balls to the wall. And then this one like teased the big fight in the last episode, because like now they've established that last episode is the big fight, and they just did a really good job of toying with our expectations and like they do I feel like the fan service that this series does not feel as heavy-handed as some other franchises do. So like even to the point now, this season I feel like really embraced the service of the fans of Cobra Kai, not just Karate Kid, where it's like that last episode you're like, okay, when's the fight going to start? Because like the season 2, it was the whole episode, right? It was like that whole thing was a fight. And then this one, it was like, when's it going to start? And they kind of like teased it a little bit, and then it didn't happen. And then all of a sudden, boom, everybody's fighting. And it's like, comes out of nowhere.
All out karate riot.
Yeah. And then like 20 minutes of just like teenagers beating this, like you said, over the top violence. That
that upset me. A lot of it upset me throughout.
Like Daredevil level violence. If you watch the Netflix Daredevil show, like I felt like that show was so gratuitously violent and juxtaposed from really intense scenes of drama. And this does that same way, man. Like, when that kid's arm actually, you don't think it's going to happen, and then it actually happens. Like he actually breaks his arm. And it's like, these are fucking kids. Yeah. Where's these fucking parents at? Like,
they're at the country club.
Yeah.
Well, let's we can abandon this if this is no fun, but let's start by the maybe just seeing about the episode to episode. So the of course Netflix dropped them all on January 1. My thought is to drop this episode on February 1, so everyone will have had a chance to hopefully, even like kind of going slow it a little bit like I did. Hopefully they've seen it all, because we're gonna spoil everything
if we haven't already.
Yeah, right. But anyway, so in the episode 1 of this season, Aftermath, Johnny's still trying to cope with the trauma of Miguel's accident, which ends up getting him heavily intoxicated and later arrested and jailed and getting into a brawl fight at a bar. Meanwhile, 2 weeks after the school fight, the All Valley community is still shaken up by coming to grips with the consequences, so the school has since put an anti-physical contact rule in action. Sam, still shaken by the fight, is suffering from panic attacks, and the duel between the two dojos is still strong. Johnny, who wants to visit Miguel in the hospital, purposely hurts himself so he can sneak into the ICU and tells Miguel words of encouragement. When Daniel finds out Robbie, who is on the run, stole a van from the dealership, Daniel and Johnny team up to find him. That felt longer to read than I thought it would, but I'm reminded of all that now. What were you guys' thoughts on this first episode?
I loved when they start with him at the bar and they're like, he won't leave. He says light beers for pussies or something.
Oh yeah, what's the banquet?
He keeps wanting some beer called Banquet.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who doesn't know Coors Original? Come on.
Hey, Dark Johnny's back. Like,
Exactly. No, it was good. I think it was a nice. Again, it's if you come back to if you think back to where season 2 ended, it had this like big 40-minute long fight that literally ended with Miguel bouncing off of a
maybe dead
stair rail, maybe dead, right? Like
in a coma, gonna die.
And so it was a good return to that. It just played I feel like it did a good job of doing what it's supposed to. It set up everything that we're going to deal with over the next series of episodes, right? Sam's panic attacks, which was a regular recurring thing. This Miguel's recovery, which was a pretty much recurring thing throughout the rest of the season.
The first few episodes, especially.
Yeah, and Johnny dealing with immense loss, like everything. He felt like he was finally moving in the right direction, and by towards the last end of season 2, and then it turns out like it was all a big elaborate plot by Kreese to steal everything from him, and now he has him in the depths of did he betray all these kids? It's a lot of empathy, I think, so much so he doesn't even recognize it as that, which is part of like Billy Zabka just does this amazing job of playing that character of his character you literally don't think he understands empathy. He doesn't understand why he's feeling the way he's feeling, and then you're seeing him deal with that, and brilliant. Just he is I think the strongest actor in the show. He just knocks it out of the park.
Put a hash brown and then send it to the internet.
And you think from on the surface he's just this big he's just playing a dumb jock, anybody could play that dumb jock, but when it gets into these dramatic moments and how he takes that dumb jock mentality and applies it to a dramatic moment effectively, that's how you know that he's really doing a great job. It's like when you see the guy who played Kevin in The Office give an interview in real life, and you realize how well that guy was actually acting to be Kevin. When the first time Ash watched an interview with him, she's like, my brain can't even make the connection that that's the same person. And
he doesn't have that.
And he visually looks exactly like Kevin, but it's not Kevin that comes out of his mouth, So I think Zabka is the same thing. The same level of this level of acting that's happening is very impressive to me.
Yeah, hearing you say that, I realized that he actually, for me, strikes the perfect. If the whole show could be balanced in its approach of all these different tones, as well as he seems to do that with his performance, it would be pitch perfect all the time, or nearly all the time. Because I was realizing that because I rewatched last night a few of the scenes in 4 and 5 that I really liked best, all the Japan stuff, and then most of the last episode, and between that being fresh in my mind and what you were just saying about him, I was starting to get emotionally moved just thinking about it, just thinking about him, and I think that I'm realizing how wonderful a job he did, and what amazing tightrope thing he walked to, and it's it pays off. And this is where I think you're really correct too about it not just being fans of Karate Kid, because if you're just fan of Karate Kid and this is all coming, well, I think if you jump to the last episode, that would have been interesting perhaps, but you're rooting for Johnny so much because of the previous things, and he grows so much. The accountability he takes, and the vulnerability he shows in those last couple of episodes. Oh shit, man, it's really getting me just thinking about it.
When we're talking, while we're on the subject, I am going to jump episodes, but we'll come to it. But the letter that he types that he does not send to Allie at the end of that episode on Facebook, where he's trying to write that email all day.
Yeah.
And let's just put a teaser in. I won't spoil it. We'll wait till we get to that episode. But when we get to that episode, just remember this conversation talking about like how good, because I feel like that episode showcases it perfectly, because he rewrites that email like 4 or 5 times throughout the like. And at one point, it's just like 2 words are sitting there, you know, he can't decide what's right. But yeah, when we get to that'll be a good revisit, because I think does a great, that little tiny arc about that email on Facebook does a great job of just showing, I think, how in tune to this character he is, and how he can just nail all of the emotions that this character is trying to work through, that they're not used to dealing with, you know? So, so
this is season 3. I mean, he just keeps bringing it.
I know, like, that's the other thing too, is like that he's the one consistency I feel like in the show, that like, you know, he's going to deliver a performance. And then Miguel, I feel like, is the next strongest character in the whole show. I actually would put like Daniel down, like I don't know. I just can't buy into him as Daniel, you know, like
as adult Daniel. Yeah,
as an adult
it's Daniel, a little weird.
Yeah.
But by the end, I appreciated where he got, and there are some scenes where I felt, is it really all the Japan stuff for me with Daniel? I was like really on board for something about that work. Sorry, what were you gonna say, Moto?
I thought he was looking a little old man, and I guess he is maybe the older one on the cast, but I liked how he fought like an old man in the end. Like Miyagi was like, "Oh, that's awesome," you know, just like
well, and
he's technique for an old man.
And he said at some point, like later in the much later in the series, he's like, you know, I'm the same age now as Mr. Miyagi was when I met him, and that really I was like, oh man, that was something.
That's a perspective, right?
Yeah.
Let's move on to we good on one?
Yeah, the only note I had for one was I thought it was very sort of notable or interesting that Miguel in his coma was fighting in the All Valley tournament, and I thought it was both interesting that was like the most important thing to him somehow, but it was an interesting, like, I don't know if metaphor is the right way, but a way to kind of play out the struggle, his inner struggle to hopefully wake up, and then as Johnny would encourage him to wake up, he was starting to kind of do better in the fight. So it's a little funny, and they do make fun of it very well, I think, at times. How important the All Valley Karate tournament seems to be in the Valley.
In the gymnasium. And
I do like how they poke fun at that inside joke a little bit.
Yeah.
And
what is it about All Valley and their love of karate?
I know. They're like
all out karate riot.
Yeah.
My first take when I see it, especially the hospital and some of that stuff, is Disney. It just screams Disney. It's so, like, I don't know, something about the way it's shot, and some of maybe the characters, I don't know, but the flash
right, like that.
There you go. That's a good way of putting it. Just
you've seen it a bunch of times before already,
and you could also tell the quality of picture and all that's just like high top dollar stuff, like really sharp. And but then like the flashback scene kind of reminds me of Kickboxer 4 or something. Or wait, Kickboxer 2 with Cody.
Oh yeah, from Step by Step.
And the new tempo.
Oh, that's awesome. See, you see, Dave does the deep cuts on movies, man. You got him too.
Oh yeah.
Got my niche.
Yeah, rare people rock a Kickboxer 2 reference.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've seen 3 and 4 now. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
I watched all 6 Phantasm movies, so.
Oh, I'm curious about those. People love those.
No, don't be.
No, okay.
Stop it too.
I've never seen the first one even.
Oh, the first one is actually really good. Sorry, I'm not trying to side rail.
No, I don't.
This is already going to be a multi-hour long conversation.
Oh yeah.
All right, so episode 2, Daniel and Johnny visit Shannon at her rehab center in order to look for Robbie, and are directed to visit Robbie's former gang acquaintances in jail. The search eventually leads to the pair to a group of thieves who have stolen the van from Robbie, leading the pair to dispatch them in self-defense. However, their brief partnership ends due to Johnny continuously assaulting one of the thieves. Johnny attempts to visit the now conscious Miguel, but is rebuffed. Daniel finds Robbie at the rehab center and has the police take him into custody in order to lessen his sentence. Meanwhile, Kreese attacks Tori's landlord in order to remove the pressure she has on taking care of her ill mother to ensure that her loyalty to Cobra Kai. So this one is just, it's more, I feel like it's like the first 3 or 4 are just all exposition. We're just setting everything up. So now we're starting to see like Kreese's intentions. He's going around and collecting all of these Cobra Kai kids to ensure their loyalty. Build his team. This Robbie story, I felt like too, these first few episodes crammed so much into these relatively short episodes. Because I mean, it's like you got the Robbie arc happening where you don't even know what's going on with him because he's the one who kicked Miguel at the end of season 2 for anybody listening if you don't remember. He kicked Miguel off of like a balcony, and when Miguel fell, he fell onto the arm rail of the stairs below him, and that's what put him in the coma. And Robbie split, we find out at the beginning of season 3, like he's disappeared. And so there was a love triangle between Miguel and Sam and Robbie. There was a father-son love triangle between Robbie and Daniel and Tommy. And now they're like, they make the joke, what's the cop show that they say they are when they're going and looking for Robbie together?
Tango and Cash.
Something like that. And they're like, we're they drug dealers, and so
narcotics is totally different.
Narcotics officers, I think.
But Johnny making that correction was one of my favorite things.
Yeah,
just the two of them together too. I was so on board for that.
Or like Lethal Weapon.
But
like
and
that,
again,
that duo.
like exposition teasing towards like where the season is going to go, right? It's that foreshadowing. So
that was fun,
subtle and fun. When in hindsight,
we also get our first. I think this is the episode where we get our first Kreese flashbacks. So we start to get the backstory of John Kreese, the main villain, and this is where they first start to do this thing where must have been intentional, where they kind of introduce a character that plays upon the audience's familiarity with these characters, and you presume in the past who's who. Like there's this kind of Biff Tannen like dickhead. I'm
so glad you said that because it reminds me of the diner scene from Back to the Future.
Exactly,
like the recurring diner scene from Back to the Future.
And it's in a diner.
It's another pull. Tango and Cash. Like I said, they just somehow threw childhood things in there that were just awesome.
Yeah. Perfect.
And
I'm sorry not to cut you off, but you were implying that that bully you were thinking was Kreese, right? And if only briefly. And the nice like person who works in the diner, there's no way that could be Kreese. Like that's and so they kind of pull we got you. Like that's again with like the early episodes in season 2 and the early episodes in season 3. I use the phrase cliche, and maybe that's a little too harsh, but this is all the kind of stuff that we've seen this kind of storytelling happening before in other things. So you're not I always look at it as when I start to feel like, I'm not seeing anything new on this. I'm like, but you're seeing it in the Karate Kid universe, So that's the novelty. Like, let's see how Karate Kid does these stories. So, but yeah, so it kind of turns the tables, and you find out that Kreese is this relatively nice guy, and that's where I personally started to have some. I'm like, I don't want to think this guy's nice. Like he's been such a great two-dimensional villain, which that sounds like a negative critique, but it's like you just want him to be endlessly evil so you can hate him to his, like, you don't have to feel any remorse for anything that happens to him.
Turned him into Anakin Skywalker. They showed you his youth and
Jesus,
that's where he turned.
Well done, sir.
And at the end, there's like some stuff from Star Wars there too. Like, wait a minute, this is Disney or what?
Yep. I agree, and so it was good, but yeah, and the setup for Silva, I cannot wait to see if he comes into season 4.
That's it. I mean, sometimes they might do a surprise and surprise us and make it better, even better than. But
Moto, we mentioned Tori's mom is sick, and that's how we know that he's going around and collecting these kids basically. So he beats up her mom is sick. She's working tons of jobs, and Kreese goes, and you initially, until the more episodes come down the line and you realize he's still manipulating children, initially you're like, maybe this guy, because we just saw this good thing from his past, so maybe he does have some twisted root of good intentions of like protecting this young girl.
And he did. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, he may have, and I think he did have a little bit, but it also meant that she was going to be loyal to him, and I think that was his larger motivation.
So yeah, it's more okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So
he definitely made a difference in her life.
Absolutely,
it made that uncomfortable. It was but it was then because then when he came and kicked the dude's ass, you're like, all right, you did the right thing,
and that's part of that conflict. It helps solidify that conflict of feelings that you have about Kreese that you already had from his flashback. But you made an allusion to so we had talked during season 2 or season 1 about maybe Tori was Elizabeth Shue's daughter
because of the way they introduced themselves with the I and the Y. And
Yep. And we find out, not to get ahead of ourselves, that is not the case.
Yep.
But now you're thinking she might be the daughter of the girl from the not love interest, the friend, because he was very specific that she was a friend.
Because he was married at the time and afraid to kiss a girl.
Or engaged. He didn't want his fiance to get jealous.
In real life, that was the thing with Ralph Macchio.
Life, he didn't want her to get jealous in real life by having to kiss a girl on screen. So he asked the writers to make her a friend.
That's hilarious.
But you think that's who it's going to be, the redhead?
I don't know. That's a question for me.
I don't know.
I wonder how many connections they'll make. Like just today, I was walking past my DVD set, and on the third disc for the Karate Kid series, on the one side is Karate Kid 3, on the flip side is Karate Kid with Hilary Swank. Like the one still has Pat Morita, which I haven't seen since it came out. But I wonder if, because when they made this move to Netflix, I listened to a podcast with the creators and stuff, and they were talking about it. And maybe I brought it up on the show already, but they said, because YouTube TV got out of the business of creating new content, and one of the reasons why they're excited to go to Netflix, etc., is because they have many more stories to tell. And he's like, you remember, Cobra Kai never dies, and so they're pulling in so much so quickly that I wonder just how far that thing will unravel, and more and more I'm here for it. I loved seeing Johnny and Daniel fight together in that garage. That was really fun, and I was kind of impressed by their agility and choreography there together. And you need you need Kreese to be bad so that these guys can join against him, and
the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? Don't they say that at some point in the
I mean, the show is truly very cheesy and very cliched, but I don't care. I'm here for it.
Again, it's fan service in the best way. I feel like this fan service is so innocent and fun compared to some of the other fan service that we've discussed already in some of the other franchises that we like, right? That can get, it just feels really heavy-handed, or it feels like either they're intentionally fucking with the fans or they're intentionally bowing to the fans, which we don't like. I personally don't like either one of those reactions. I make the movie that should be made, not the one people keep telling you to make. Sometimes fans don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Because they don't make movies for a living and tell stories. Right. You know what I mean?
I forget where I heard it, but I heard that they said no matter how short they cut it, they have a way of how they're going to wrap it up. So they have an end game already. That
awesome. That's reassuring.
But it could be extended, like they said, how many seasons. But they said that they do have a way. They said it's in their contract somehow that they'll be allowed to wrap it up the way they want to.
Yeah, and Netflix is scary sometimes, where it'll just up and cancel fan favorite franchises with no warning. I mentioned Daredevil when it was able to work out the deal with Disney, and it axed every one of its Marvel franchises it was working on at the time, and that was a sizable amount. And but now, is it Kevin Feige? Is he the guy that runs Marvel?
I think so.
He went on record to say don't rule out a return of that Daredevil universe.
That first season was excellent, in particular.
Oh, yeah. And they're making Deadpool. They have gone on record to say that they are bringing Deadpool to the MCU, and his movies will continue to be R-rated. So I think they're kind of embracing this. They have to acknowledge like there's a sizable portion of their fan base who are adults and want to see these heroes in a like as realistic of a setting as possible. That's going to mean swearing and violence and people getting hurt and all that stuff. So there's got to be a market for that, I think, still.
I'm here for it.
And,
anybody else? Anything else from episode 2?
I don't think so. I don't.
The only note I had was I was taken aback remember when Miguel yelled at Johnny? It's really like fierce, like unexpected. That's one of those tonal things that sometimes it'll just like, whoa, shit. But there are, for as cliched and stuff as it can be, there are occasionally like really genuine emotional stakes that I think even when everything isn't working quite together, those pay off ultimately when it does kind of fall back in step with just the right balance. But
I think that's the because we've alluded to that too, where we're started to get too mushy or whatever as far as the drama goes. Like you can overlook those when you see ultimately what they're like how they're going to pay off.
Yeah.
And the car dealership, which you mentioned in episode, like when we were given that's a great example of that. Like, because that's the exact reason how he gets over to Japan, which you say is like some of your favorite stuff from the season, right?
Yeah.
And that was the catalyst that got him over there.
Yeah, and a pretty good one ultimately, because it makes sense that all of this violence and stuff, especially the stuff at the school, that and Robbie, who did was the one to knock Miguel off, was Daniel's student, and so it does make some sense, at least intellectually or like in that there would be a blowback for Daniel's business. And
that's kind of the answer to the why is the Valley so concerned about karate? Like it would impact his business if it's ingrained in the community that much, right? Like
so episode 3 is actually one that I don't think I have any specific notes for, and I could not, the main thing for me about that one was that, so I'm happy to read the synopsis, but I could also just kind of skip it. Other than the main beat is that Johnny goes and sees Bobby, another of the Cobra Kai alumni from Karate Kid, who's now a pastor, and he goes to him for advice to how to help pay for the surgery Miguel needs to hope, because there's this threat that Miguel may never be able to walk again, which is why he has that severe lashing out at Johnny, who he holds responsible.
And that was his into the prison system for Johnny, was because he was a priest.
Oh yeah, and then because at this point,
or whatever.
I guess that happened at the end of episode 2, where both Daniel and Johnny are in this position of like so it's with Johnny, it's with Robbie, his son, and with it's flip with Daniel, it's with I get confused.
Yeah. Well, it's
Daniel had to turn in Robbie for his own good to the authorities
because he was being trained at Miyagi-Do.
Yes, but of
course, student,
and he knew that would be the best thing for Robbie.
Yeah, and Miguel, or like Johnny was rejected by Miguel, so they're kind of both on the outs with their son figures, even though one was the actual guy's son.
And that's what prompted his like Cobra Kai alumni to be like, you need to go visit your son and you need to talk to him.
Yeah.
So they made the plans to go do that the following day or whatever. He was going to help get him in to visit Robbie and try to coach this mending of that fence.
Yeah.
And Johnny biffs it big time. But this also sets up like the foreshadowing for the big a couple big fights happening between Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do.
So Johnny didn't make it on time for his own son, but chose his student, and Daniel was kind of doing the same thing as well, going after Robbie. That was his student. Just nice conflict they put in there,
and not necessarily making time for his daughter. I guess ultimately,
exactly. Who
was really struggling. That's one of the things too. I think they do well is like having the violence that can sometimes, because like ultimately you want there to be fighting because it's Karate Kid or Cobra Kai.
Yeah,
Right.
But
Right.
it can be pretty traumatic, these things, and so I think the idea of like actually playing out some of that with Sam, it was a good idea. I mean, it certainly was. I didn't always like love it, but it made sense as something that you would have to grapple with. Because like Tori, that character, she had these like, she cut Sam's arm, and somebody could have died there.
Yeah.
And that seemed to resonate.
Died, and even in the first couple episodes, it was still hit or miss on if he was going to survive. I mean, of course, he's going to survive. He's the main character. But
I felt like they touched on like a modern character within that, of like the online bullying and real life bullying, and just things being more extreme or things moving quicker or whatever. So that appeals more to that younger crowd, and this like, you know, takes you back and makes you feel like ugh. And so they do enough of that where it's like, I need to fight.
Yep.
Self-defense.
I think that the PTSD, if you will, that Sam was struggling with after that fight throughout this whole season was, I struggle with her character in particular. I just don't think that some of her stuff is as strong as it could be, but I feel like all that PTSD stuff was like spot on. She nailed it, and I think that was some of her strongest stuff this season. On top of her fighting, she does fight very well. But
she was Disney, so Disney brought her in. I mean, I don't know. It's not Disney.
I didn't know that.
No, it's not Disney. It's Netflix. Well, and this was YouTube. YouTube started.
Yeah, YouTube paid for this one. But
started.
I think for me the kid stuff doesn't resonate for me, but I know why it's there, and I think I'm glad it's there to kind of, you know, broaden. And you need those characters for the adults. The only one they really, and this is where I'm like, I wonder what they'll do in the future, because like you see Daniel's son maybe like once this whole season, and they've never done anything with him. So at some point they have to, otherwise what's the point in him being there?
Right.
But yeah, so the kids' storylines don't always resonate with me, and I think this season in particular, the motivations were less clear for me about. I mean, like, you know, Sam is struggling with this thing, so that makes sense. And I thought they did a good job of starting to set up some stuff with Tori, but just the intensity of like the hatred and the violence does not seem very well motivated for me with the kids. Like, why? And also even with Kreese, like, why is he trying to amass these students? To what end? To what real goal? The fucking tournament? If so, they don't even talk about that. So that's one thing that whenever it was like with those stories, I was just not tracking the intensity of the reactions or motivations about, I don't know, that, though I will say, so just to, as a disclaimer, not a disclaimer, but to soften that a little bit, that maybe harsh judgment, when it does get to the end and Robbie says what he says, it took me having rewatched some of the stuff and fast forward through a lot of the things I've just mentioned that I didn't really enjoy as much. I was like, oh, okay. If you just take like the facts of it all, it's just something about that. It just doesn't work for me. The kids' motivation this series. That's the one sort of critique I would say of the season 3 for me.
What about if it's embracing it's coming down to, that's my sensei. It's like, that's their motivation, is that I'm defending my sensei. Because I feel like this one really embraced that kung fu movie mentality, that kung fu movie philosophy, which I admit you both could run circles around me in that whole universe of stuff. But in the very surface of that genre, I feel like this season is where they really started. Again, long payoffs for this show, but they've been setting up the whole time loyalty, and that's what really this whole and what does that loyalty look like? Can that loyalty change based on circumstance? But that instant hatred, it all comes back to I'm Cobra Kai, you're Miyagi-Do. your screaming eagle fang or whatever. Like, yeah.
Why did you kill my teacher?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just like that. That's
Yeah.
exactly what that is. I mean, talk about where is the motivation for that hatred, and that's a great example. That scene, right?
That's a great point actually, because the sensei stuff does make sense. It's really the stuff between the kids interpersonally that doesn't track always for me very well. So like, when there was so much like getting revenge on the Miyagi-Do and all this stuff, it was like for Miguel, but like Miguel wasn't asking them for that. None of them even saw him. They're all just like so. And it sort of like I have to accept it to move the plot along, but it doesn't quite work for me. And Hawk getting so dark, and breaking Dimitri's arm ultimately, it's kind of the pinnacle of that. And then you start to see him kind of be like, I don't know.
I don't buy that. I think that's all a setup. I think he's like a plant by Kreese.
Oh,
like I don't think he actually. I think he is still Kreese's number 2.
Oh,
and like all that stuff with like the creating that like tension with the new recruits, and like Kreese acted like that Asian kid who actually bullied Hawk was his number 2, and that's the guy that he actually liked. Like, I think all of that is a setup for he's gonna betray at the like opportune time and reveal that he was Cobra Kai the entire time. And like,
that's interesting.
If there's gonna be someone, it would be him.
It would be him, right?
It was nice to see he and Dimitri get back together. It's like Eli.
Yeah.
No, like all that was great. And it was, and if he is double crossing them, like it would make that even better. Like that, like all of this like over dramatization. We're like, oh, he's like so dark and all that stuff. Like he maintained the dark. He doubled down on the dark and betrayed all those people. Like was a mole and a plant. Like,
that's very interesting, because that was one of the. I mean, I was very happy that moment happened. That he kind of came to the rescue of, kind of seemed to turn against Cobra Kai in that final fight. But the moment that he made that choice, and I was just like, I didn't make sense to me. Like, there were so many more intense.
What made me think it's all fake.
Yeah, because like there were super intense things that were happening moments before and even after that, but it wasn't seeing that and the most extreme things that made him be like, oh, I got to snap out of this. It just seemed to come out of nowhere.
With it from the start, though, because he was now friends with the guys that bullied him.
Yeah,
he was like, wait a minute, I don't really, doesn't resonate well with him that he's now friends with these guys that he didn't like before, and went back with his old friends, at the end. The transition may not have been clear enough or exemplified enough.
And it could very well be a legitimate thing, and he actually did see the light and everything, but I could see that again, because I feel like this one really embraced that like karate movie mythos, like those classic karate movie mythos. The quote unquote cliche things, right? Like my sensei, I'm defending my sensei and my dojo and all that stuff. And I feel like that is a prime plot point to have that betrayal at the, like, it's going to be during the fight of season 4, the last episode fight of season 4. And it's going to come down to like Hawk and somebody.
That's great foresight.
You're going to think that Hawk is like, all right, he's been on their side this entire 10 episodes for season 4, and at the last second, he's gonna like seriously hurt the person, like, and you're gonna realize he was bad this whole time, and you'll look back like it could potentially pay off to be an amazing throwback if that happens. And I feel like in that vein of the karate movie philosophy, that would be a great double cross.
Yeah, hell yeah. Well, we're moving like right into where, for me, this season like really takes like all of this track that they're laying starts to like, I don't know, you just sort of burn through it. Like the train's going really fast pretty soon here. Like, and funnily enough, episode 4 is called The Right Path. But so in this one, so the stuff with Daniel's business, the dealership plays out such that like he's gonna have to go under because of Toyota, like a Toyota, obviously, surrogate to, is not going to deal with him. And and so he ends up going to Japan, to Mr. Miyagi's hometown. And then what else is that? I'm just kind of looking here to not. I mean, that's the main thing. He goes to Tomy Village, where Karate Kid 2 takes place, and he's gonna try to like solve this. But the whole like Daniel's looking Mr. Miyagi's philosophy: you look people in the eye and you tell them the truth. All this stuff. So Daniel in Japan was a great, like when that happened at the end of the third, because each episode ends with like a ooh, oh shit. I think the first episode ended with Miguel waking up. Can't remember what the second episode ended with, but the third episode ended with knowing that Daniel's going to Japan. And so for me, the Tomy Village is now like this sort of shopping center, but right in the middle of it, there's this dancing and it turns out to be that the person on stage leading the dancing is Kumiko, his sort of love interest from when he was in Japan. And man, right away, I was just like, whoa, I was taken aback by how much that hit me.
Yeah.
And everything with her really moved me like instantly. And again, when I watched it last night, that actress carries such like grace. I don't know. I was just like, he should be married to her. Their chemistry was beautiful. I think it is my favorite thing about the whole season 3. And I would not have guessed that. Karate Kid 2 is not, I would say, the strongest. I mean, Karate Kid 1 obviously is a masterpiece, but Karate Kid 2 is not necessarily great or even one of my favorites, but
it's better than 3 though.
So
like I like Tony Silva. I don't like the dark Superman version of Daniel.
No,
I think I agree. I think that all of that was super strong. I think in as much as we talk about this show being cliche, because this isn't the only love interest throwback that happens during this season. I feel like Netflix kind of pulled out all the stops on this and like really got everything we've been talking about. Oh, when are they going to do this? It kind of pays out in this season.
Yeah.
And as cliche as we talk about it, I actually like the fact that they keep it it's so beautiful, their relationship, but it's not romantic at all.
Right.
And you would expect it to happen, if it was cliche. And it doesn't even tiptoe into it. Like,
well, they touch hands at that one point by accident and kind of share a moment, but it's innocent. And I think it was wise to do that because there obviously is something there. And I think, I don't know if they recognize the chemistry while they're doing it or whatever, but I'm glad they had that moment, but I'm also glad they so quickly diffused it. Yeah, I thought that was great.
Yep. And I feel like the next throwback love interest that they come to we'll get to later in the season, it goes a little bit closer to maybe tiptoeing into romanticism, but again, it's handled with just such class and just such like, this was all wonderful, but it just has to be this. It was really great. I liked it.
Really respected those characters and
agree.
And they're both Kumiko was a pleasure to see, and like you said, handled with such grace and just that wisdom that he needed and the different thoughts, and it was great. Hey. No, just lots of hays.
Oh yeah. Like Felicity. No wonder I liked it. Well, there's sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, you want to knock out the whole Japan vein right now since we're on
it
already?
I think from here forward, I am more familiar at least, and we can familiarize however. But yeah, we definitely talk about Japan in general.
Well, we went from
it's not the only. Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say, it's not the only throwback we get.
The introduction of his old nemesis from Karate Kid 2, Chosen.
Yeah. The great name.
Man. 6.
Yeah.
So fantastic.
They did a throwback to For Your Collection. Did they do?
I was trying to remember that because, do you remember what he's referring to in Karate Kid 2 when he says For Your Collection? Because he
took his shirt off. He took his shirt and laughed like someone made Doug, maybe. And then they threw the shirt, here for your collection.
Yeah. That's right. Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't remember that. The reveal of him in that coffee, because I don't know if it was what they were drinking. I thought it was a coffee shop, but I think ultimately they were drinking something.
It was liquor.
Liquor, yeah.
Scotch. Yeah.
And I think that scene starts with like the ice kind of falling into place to reference like the thing in Karate Kid 2 where he has
six.
bet
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
She's breaking ice off of that same rig that they were like she's just knocking pieces off to put in their drinks. So
right. And then a moment or two
on a bet with coward.
That's right. And in that movie, Chosen, you know,
Yogi! Come on, hear me, Yogi!
I'm like driving home one day and I'm just thinking that, and I'm hearing your voice. And I do it for fun. Just you're
come on, Yogi!
Come on, defend your honor.
Defend your honor, Yogi! Sato just screaming into the storm, man.
That was awesome. And then they had the girl that he rescued as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, another great throw. That whole thing just felt nostalgic to me. I definitely shed a few tears during that episode.
Yep. Who, conveniently enough, is the like foreign sales like senior president, sales manager of the whatever the Toyota ripoff is that Daniel came over to try to save. So she's the one that's able to like save his business single-handedly. So it sums that up all. The whole arc, nice and neat, right?
Yep, absolutely smart.
But in between that, though, when he's with his arch nemesis, we see some really awesome character growth and development between the two of them.
That was funny, Dave. You really enjoyed that, didn't you?
Oh my God, yeah. So, when Chosen shows up, like that was such a reveal. Like him but that whole thing in the cafe or the bar or whatever, the awkwardness of it and not knowing what he was gonna do, I could have watched that forever. I was just in heaven of like the kind of comedy of that.
He's like a robot. He's like all stiff and just like he's like
got the mean face.
Like, buy you a drink. He's like, I do not drink during the daytime or whatever he said.
They didn't drink at all. That's how I realized they were drinking alcohol because it looked like water. But yeah, it was really awkward. And Daniel's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get another drink," and Joseph's like, "No, I get it." He's like, "No, it's fine." No, he's like, he's still got that same affect.
That was good.
And when he first walks up, you think like, "Oh shit, what's this now?" But then he bows to him kind of carefully. And anyway, I don't want to forget to mention with there's the beautiful, before we go all about Chosen, there's a really lovely scene where, because like, Kumiko asks him, is like, "Why are you here?" He's like, "Oh, this thing with my business." And she goes, No, why are you really here? And he's said, "I've been kind of in trouble and I would always go to Mr. Miyagi, but now he's like, and she's like, "I think I can make that happen for you." And she presents, they meet at, what's her, Yukie, Mr. Miyagi's like love, like childhood love that we see in Karate Kid 2. So we meet at her house. She's, I think, passed away probably as well. I don't know if they tell us, but
yeah.
So Kumiko has
that's how she found the letters.
Oh yes. And so Mr. Miyagi had written to her all this time, and it's cool that the letters were in Japanese, and so Kumiko had to read it to him. Oh man, I get so choked up because like the way that she is moved by reading the letters to Daniel is so moving, and that's one of those scenes where I felt it was so grounded, that really works so well for me. But it is also undercut with the humor of Mr. Miyagi as well, to where he says this thing. I can't. It's something about like he's writing to her from the hospital, and he's talking about how he's always looking for signs, and then he mentions something about how he met. I don't know if I wrote this down. Maybe I didn't.
Because of Daniel, that's what allowed him to rekindle his love with this woman and start it. That was one piece of it, and then the other piece of it was that through Daniel. This is how it ties to his daughter, because great foresight on the writers here is they let the story. They knew they couldn't have Mr. Miyagi, obviously, in Cobra Kai because Pat Morita has passed a while ago. But they had the wherewithal to say that Mr. Miyagi was alive long enough to have been there during Sam's early childhood, like up to like 4 or whatever. And so that letter also ties back about how, because I think he wrote the letter, it was the last letter he wrote.
Yeah.
And it was while he was dying.
Yeah.
And he talks about it makes this tie together about how it's without Daniel, he would have never rekindled his love with this woman. He would have never like felt like a father. He would have never felt like ultimately a grandfather because Sam makes him feel like a grandfather when he gets to see her. And you're right. It is beautiful. And it helps Daniel realize like the lineage is what's important and like helps him refine, like, it doesn't matter, like just go back and like be there for your daughter, and you need to help her get over this stuff. Like, and that's why he comes back and he has this feeling like, what's going on with her? Like, maybe I just need to figure it out. And that because she hasn't talked to anybody about her PTSD or problems that she's having.
Right.
So, but it's like that because she says, "What's that letter?" And he's like, "I need Mr. Miyagi." And so then the letter that she reads for Mr. Miyagi comes back to Sam, and now he knows like, Mr. Miyagi would have told me to go like fix what's wrong with my daughter, like help her. She needs my help.
Yeah.
And he's coming into his own as a sensei.
Yes, that
and
too.
Father.
Yeah.
That too. Excellent point. That is a great observation. So, but that all of that is the key, like the crucial moment there that happens with that letter, and which is just so awesome.
Yeah.
And again, reaffirming the scene that like to move back to the villain from I can't remember his character's name, which is awful.
Chosen.
Yeah, Chosen. To get like that solidifies the it's more foreshadowing. Like he's coming together with Chosen by the end of their time together. Like they're kind of friends, and like foreshadowing again, like this thing. Like we already had some, like him and Johnny tried to pair up and it fell apart. And now he was able to show like he could make friends with Chosen. So maybe there's still hope for him pairing up with, because even I feel like even we as an audience, if you're invested in this, know like, oh, they have to. The only way they're going to defeat Kreese is if they band forces, and which as soon as they do that, then that's when they're going to bring Tony Silva out, and it's going to be fun.
Well, I remembered then now what it was. It was the thing about signs. So Mr. Miyagi said, "We always in life we always lose our way, and I'm always looking for signs." And he's like, "But ultimately, it's like people, and like what you were helped with the Daniel and his family and people that bring us back and help us find our way." And then so he's kind of coming out of that advice, I guess, from Mr. Miyagi beyond the grave through Kumiko, and then she kind of arranges this thing for him to cross paths and spend time with with Chosen, who just, to remind us all, like was so he was very much like Tori, I feel like. And he's like, was just I guess he was just, his whole thing was about honor, but like he was just relentless with Daniel to the point even of like challenging to a fight to the death at the end of that movie. Yeah. And then there's the famous thing where, Daniel gets the better of him, and then he goes like, this is so cheesy, but he's like, live or die, man. And Chosen's like, die. And he goes, wrong, honk, and like tweaks his nose like we see Mr. Miyagi
Which is how Mr. Miyagi did to Kreese at the end of season 1.
Yeah. But so then she connects those two together, and she's like, all right, have fun. And there's this awkward thing of like kind of Chosen showing him around and then talking about, this is where karate was born, and Miyagi karate, and we find out that they are essentially what Daniel jokes as karate cousins, trained by their senseis share a sensei.
What a beautiful what a beautiful phrase to say. Karate cousins. That's really awesome.
I loved that, and then I loved seeing them kind of at the dojo together, and sort of we're kind of let on to, or we're let in that there's certain, not just defense only, they're more like an offensive side to Miyagi's family karate that Daniel wasn't necessarily taught, and Chosen is kind of showing it to him while also kicking his butt. And then this is the thing. So I didn't watch the trailer. I tried to not know as much about the series coming in as I could, but I had this scene spoiled for me, and Chosen's so they get to a thing where like Chosen's doing these moves that kind of paralyze Daniel's arms, and it's like they actually talk about a kind of a kill or be killed scenario. And Chosen does like this, the mirror image of like he's got his hand raised and his other hand on the back of Daniel's head, and it's the same way that Daniel, what we just talked about from Karate Kid 2, or the live or die thing. And up to this point, Chosen's been so kind of, well, chosen about it that you don't know. I mean, you know he's not going to kill Daniel as an audience member, but you're not sure.
Yeah, no, you know he's not.
But I saw a picture of that in a print publication of all things right before fucking Entertainment Weekly. I saw that and I was like, what? So I knew that was coming somehow.
I told you that the season finale of Mandalorian got spoiled by the man himself.
Yeah.
Because I was doing the same thing and saw a tweet from him, and I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? I totally, the biggest fucking secret in Star Wars, and I get it spoiled by the person. Like,
which I haven't seen Mandalorian yet, and I have listened to some of you guys.
I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything. I'm not.
I was busy the month of December, and I haven't got to see that.
But
I plan on investing into that.
I'm glad to know that, actually, because that'll come into play towards the end of some things I was thinking about in this. But then he does the thing, and Chosen honks his nose, and he just completely drops that hard ass affect, and his English becomes better, his voice becomes lighter. He even does that laugh, that high pitched laugh that he taunts Daniel with, like he's kind of thing. Yeah. But he's like, he made himself laugh like Mr. Miyagi would sometimes when he would fuck with Daniel. I forgot, at the end of that letter too, he gives this thing about people showing you their way, and he's like, you like that, Yukie? Mr. Miyagi writes, I got that from a car commercial. And you can just imagine him laughing, and oh man, it's great. And so then there's the scroll. So Chosen has like all of the Miyagi family artifacts, and so Daniel sees the scroll for like the crane technique, and he's like, oh my god, he wants it, but Chosen's like, you're a foreigner, you can't come in here and take this. And this is before he kind of softens. And after that too, he's like, when after our fight, I felt great shame, and Chosen clearly made a choice to turn his life around, or to not embrace that shame or that hate that seemed to consume him throughout that second movie. And seems to be a pretty cool, well-adjusted guy. And then he gives Daniel,
one might say,
it's like your sensei was a great man, and I could only hope to be like him. And it's lovely. And then Daniel's like, oh man, if only every rivalry could end like this. Right.
I wonder if there's another rivalry that could end like this.
But it's hard to imagine at that point. At least it was for me, and I was just so kind of taken with that. And then right as he's about to leave, and it's funny too, because like they're in these, there's the commercialization of Tachi Village, and then where Chosen takes him is kind of more like what we saw in Karate Kid 2. But it ends with him too. It's like, all right, take that path down and get a cab, and then. As Daniel goes to leave, though, he calls him back, and then he gives him the scroll, and he goes, for your collection.
That was it. I was like, oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
For your collection.
Oh, it's beautiful. But I couldn't remember like what he had said it about. There's lovely callbacks, too, where with Kumago, too, where she was talking. He's like, how are you not married? And he's like, oh, there's been many people. She's like, none fought to the death for me.
He's like, one act to follow.
Yeah. And then she's like, I guess I've stayed, what do you say? A free agent, which is something he told her, when they met, like that he wasn't, in a relationship. But I also love too where, I can't remember what it was, but when she said that, like, oh yeah, getting to travel around and some of her favorite experiences. And she's got this kind of very classy and just not very like like Daniel's joking about Seinfeld and stuff, and Kumiko doesn't seem like she would make that kind of reference. But when he asked someone what her favorite things were, she was like, "I got to see the Cranberries and Radiohead, 1995.
Yeah.
They played." I thought that was cute
cool.
too. Anyway,
She was a dancer, right? Like she got a dancing scholarship. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so then I think by that point Daniel's gonna like go back to. Oh, though that last beat though is like we see Kumiko one more time, and then she's like there with a friend of hers who turns out to be not only the little girl, she was a little girl at the time that Daniel saved in the typhoon in Karate Kid 2, because Kumiko has said this thing that, and her aunt Yukie, who was Miyagi's, I can't think of the right word because they were never like married or anything, right? It was just like his love interest, which seems diminutive to, I don't know, I can't find the right word. The love of Miyagi's life. Yeah,
like considered themselves soulmates, but they just never panned out.
Yes, So she said that Yuki used to always tell her like, you put good things out into the world and good will come back to you, and so she had told Daniel that earlier, and she probably went off. So, Kumiko was playing a real Miyagi type role of just like kind of bringing Daniel back.
He said he came to Japan for Miyagi, and he found 3 of them, right? Like he found 3 people that all like. Right.
Well, hadn't occurred to me. Yeah. So she's still in touch with this now like, a fully grown woman who's like involved with sales for Toyota, and she goes, you saved my life back then, and she's like, I'm about to save your business. She's senior for VP sales, so VP for senior sales or whatever for Toyota, and so when that happened though, I watched this with the bride who doesn't have the same level of nostalgia, but she's interested, and we watch it now with her cousin and his wife. Who loves it?
All right.
Yeah. Oh my God. I wish she were into podcasts and stuff because I loved it. She just because they just watched it when it came to Netflix, and she was just obsessed with it, and she couldn't stop with it. She's like,
I had to wait for a year.
Yeah. And I tried to get Robbie to watch it, but he just didn't. When it was on YouTube, but he didn't care. But his wife was so into it. And she was like, people don't understand how this good this is. They need to know.
That's how I felt.
Yep.
When it first came out.
Yeah. So it was great. And she got a thing for Billy Zabka now. So I've been texting her pictures. I'm sure we'll get back to the Johnny storyline about the pictures with Johnny, but trying to entice her to watch. But so anyway, the bride she enjoys it, but doesn't like love it. But when that thing happened where the fully grown woman now says that to Daniel about, it's kind of that good things, put good things out in the world, they'll come back to you, and she's going to save his business. The bride goes, I don't care if that is cheesy. That's the kind of shit I love. and
that's cool.
Yeah, I think at the worst of this show, it's still that, and not that was the worst. That was a great moment. I just mean like for any critique I might have, I don't care if it's cheesy. I love it.
I think it's a real life lesson, and that's what Miyagi was. He was full of life lessons, and still you can go back to Karate Kid and like feel like you might have learned something, on a deeper level. And Miyagi was that character. I had I'll just call them the Woods Boys. They asked me who would I rather be. I can't think of his name right now. Oh, Zien, Uncle Zien, or Miyagi, and I was like. Miyagi.
Yeah.
Like he reminds me of my dad, my own dad. It's like, but that's a tough question. I mean, nice question.
Yeah. Uncle Zian from the Kickboxer franchise. or not uncle. I mean, he's Miley's uncle, but whatever. Don't step there. Store. Yeah. Well, to bring it back to America, unless there's anything you guys want to talk about more.
Just a great episode.
All of this shit happening over in Japan.
Some healing, the turnaround. We're ready to turn this thing around, turn the ship around.
Serious shit is happening back over in the States, down in the Valley, right?
That's right.
And this is where there is they fully embrace the distinction between there is a world that these kids are living in and a world that the adults and their drama are housed in, and a very small overlap between those two worlds. And
kind of like real life.
Exactly like real life, and exactly like the Karate Kid stuff, there just was no adults that we were following. We were just seeing the kid level of all the shit, right?
Yeah.
And so
that's like the Goonies and all those movies we've talked about at times. Like there's the world of serious kid business. Yeah.
Yeah. And this deals with some serious fucking kid. Like, we're gonna fucking kill you. Like, I really feel like Tori literally wants to. She already has inflicted bodily harm on Sam, but I think if given the choice, she would have brained her with those nunchucks. Like, I really would have. Like,
Robbie's been used to a tough life and living on the street. When Tori and Robbie got to be together, I mean, it gets a little Twilighty for me, but it's like a badass couple. Like,
it is, and and actually, Robbie, I think, is so one of those characters where I'm just like, do we need this? But he's really like conflicted. I think like he's walking the earth right now to like really find his like center. So, and he's another one I think that's going to come in and just going to like, he's going to be the counterbalance to Hawk, in my opinion. That's going to come in and like really you know, and I agree that the teenage angsty part of it is the part that I have the hardest time with. And the part that it is thickest last season and season 3 in the first like 4 to 5 episodes, because it's all exposition, and then it's just like, well, you betrayed my sensei, you're gonna fucking die. Like, come here, bring me your arm, fucking snap it off. Like,
you've offended my family, and you've offended a Shaolin temple.
That's right.
And now you must die.
Yeah.
And now and they embrace like the swearing. So they're actually saying, like, the kids are saying like dropping F-bombs, and they were doing that with the adults, I feel like, in the first 2 seasons, but this one they like Netflix was like, yeah, F-bombs all day long. I don't care. You know, and man, so the drama is what's unfolding is like Sam gets somehow Cobra Kai got the credit for raising the money.
Oh yeah,
for Miguel.
They beat him up. Yeah,
Miguel needed a surgery.
Well, because they just took it from him. Like the Miyagi-Do did the car wash, and then the Cobra Kai kids just came in and beat ass and stole the money from the little guy that was supposed to. Yeah.
And then donated it on behalf of Cobra Kai for Miguel. So they get the credit for paying for his surgery. And that's where Sam gets this idea that the second they have their guard down, we're jumping them. And which is so not Miyagi-Do. Like, so like
but a little bit like young Daniel. There were moments where Sam seemed to share that kind of dickishness that Daniel can exhibit sometime, or just general teenage stuff.
Yeah, like
yeah, because they even had that. Remember that scene in Karate Kid where Daniel tries out for the soccer team, and the Cobra Kai guys kind of trap him into getting in a fight, and as he walks away, and they're like, you can't be a fighter, can't be beating people up, and he's like, this school sucks, man. Sucks. And off to the side, you got Allie like doing her cheerleading thing, and Cruel Summer playing, but like. They actually have a soccer battle in this season with the kids that starts.
They brought that back.
Yeah, you can hear it. Like you can hear off to the side, like go, fight, win. The same as that. So it's kind of cool the way there's in-jokes upon in-jokes in that way.
Oh yeah.
But like, they have a brawl on that soccer field. Like it's kind of brutal.
So that's what's happening while Daniel is over in Japan. This is all culminating. There's a couple of major altercations between Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do where Sam is really looking for that, because Cobra Kai is repeatedly coming off as the good guys in this school, and Miyagi-Do is all of those kids are on thin ice. Like they're like with the school, like you're going to get suspended if we keep doing anything again. And Cobra Kai is really embracing these like and you can see Kreese even exhibiting the same things, like when he schmoozes the city council to try to get the tournament.
Oh my god!
Like,
when he says
he's doing the exact same tactics that his kids we're doing,
prick.
So you know where they learned it, and but this all culminates to a really big fight in an abandoned laser tag.
No, it's active because the one Miyagi-Do student was working there, and so the Cobra Kai come to Wait, no, actually, Sam goes. Anyway, it's kind of an aggressive move led by Sam.
So he's working at putt place that they went on the first
golf
in
and
the
stuff,
first movie, right? And putt and stuff, is that it? And the Cobra Kai kids jump the counter and steal a bunch of prizes that you would pay for with those redemption tickets.
Yeah.
And so he texts Sam and says, I'm going to get fired. Like, these guys just came in and jumped me at work and like stole a bunch of stuff. And she's like, we'll be there in 15 minutes. So she rallies all of Miyagi-Do and they lure the Cobra Kai guys, who they think now they have outnumbered them. There's like 5 of them and 3 Cobra Kai guys, that they will easily be able to beat the shit out of them, teach them a lesson, and get out of there. Unbeknownst to them, it's all, again, just an elaborate plot that they just keep playing into Cobra Kai's hands, because then like 4 more Cobra Kai show up at this. They're moving towards winning the fight, doing exactly how they thought they were going to kick the ass out of the 3 of them. And then like 4 more, including Tori, shows up. And this again is where like each of these people have these acting moments where if you're not buying them as a character, just wait. Like, again, long payoffs, because I feel like Sam, the woman who plays Sam, just really shined with those panic attacks and the flashbacks and dealing with that, what that would be like. But she clams up, right? And just lets her people get their ass handed to them. And then one of the kids, Hawk, goes through and snaps one of their arms, like breaks it.
Like his old best friend, Dimitri. Yeah. I actually even forgot his name. Moto reminded us earlier, like Hawk
Eli.
was initially the meek Eli with a cleft palate and was bullied by some guys that are, I don't know if they're not, if they're not Cobra Kai, they would be Cobra Kai within an episode or something, and he'd be back kind of with his own sort of PTSD of remembering those, beatings from those guys. But so, he just like, with everybody watching and kind of threatening, and so it wasn't like an in the moment. It was a very deliberate, very drawn out. It actually reminded me of Back to the Future as well, when Biff had George McFly with his arm behind his back, and there's that tension, and Marty's mom's like, you're gonna break his arm. It's like you're like, oh no, but in this, like, fucking guy does it. It's terrible, and
it breaks cliche at all the right times. I will hand the show that. Like, it knows when to break away from a cliche, and you think it's not going to happen. You think like, there's no way they're going to let one kid break another kid's arm in this television show and show it, and they do. And like, these are teenage kids, like 14 to supposed to be 14 to 17-year-olds who are like carrying weapons, like felony level weapons, and harming each other with them, and breaking noses and arms and bloodying each other. And you just don't see that kind of risk except in Netflix or one of these streaming services.
It's tough in California.
Try
to escape LA right now. You gotta get some weapons, man. Gotta be good at basketball.
But so Sam really crumbles there, kind of, and is unable to kind of fight as she has been before. And then Dimitri has to go to the hospital. And so we end up seeing, so Sam's mom, Amanda, Daniel's wife, he comes there, he's still in Japan. And I think they're mad at, Sam has kind of been acting out. She's been trying to kind of get to practice karate. They're like, nobody's supposed to be doing karate right now after the last season. And so Sam had been like convening and training with the other, both the kids leaving Cobra Kai because of the basically being kicked out for not being asshole enough. And anyway, so Sam's kind of been on the outs with her parents a little bit, and they're not necessarily understanding each other or understanding what she's going through. But in the hospital, she just like kind of crumbles into her mom's arms crying. And Amanda goes to see Kreese. And this was so unexpected as well, because I have to admit, like, I have not enjoyed that character really at all.
Neither do I. I think I said that in the season 1 and season 2 reaction.
Yeah, the bride doesn't like her either. We're just like, what is this?
Well, you were kind of expecting her to split with Daniel, and then when he met Kumiko, I was like, oh well, there's his split.
Oh yeah, but then she goes to Cobra Kai, and Kreese comes out, and she's like, "What the fuck?" Basically, but not exactly saying that. She's like, kids are getting hurt, and Kreese is kind of coming up to her and doing the thing we've heard him do a bunch of times, like the callback. But he's like that thing he says, like, "Oh, you're a feisty little," because like he said it to Mr. Miyagi. He's like, "Oh, you're a pushy little bastard." But I like that. We've heard him do that at least one other time as a callback in the series. He starts to do that to Amanda, and she decks him. Like she goes,
slaps him.
Slaps him hard. She goes, "I don't
fuck with this shit at all."
Yeah,
like,
and she does say, she goes, "I don't give a shit what you like. You're a sociopath, and I'm gonna take you down if it's the last thing I do." And storms out. I was just like, "Whoa!"
Damn, that just happened.
I was on board with Amanda from that point forward.
Yeah, and then it was, it's funny. Yeah. She was throwing Tango and Cash at Johnny and Daniel for beating up the kids in prison to get the info. Then later, Daniel finds out that they're trying to put a restraining order against Kreese, but it's like, I actually have one against you.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, you did what?
Which is so hilarious. Like, it's such a, like, quote unquote, pussy move from such, like, for somebody who's trying to avoid, like, he's trying to toughen up kids and, like, trying to, like, no mercy and, like, fight, and then he goes and files but when you realize like that no mercy applies also to manipulation and applies to all that stuff, and he's just as snake-like as the Cobra that
there are times when I swear the lighting that they did really made him look like Snake Eyes.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
There were times like, oh my gosh, he looks like a human snake.
Yeah,
and because of his eyes and face, it's like, wow.
Well,
that's too good.
Sorry, he's also wormed his way into Robbie's life because Robbie's in juvie during this time, and he's getting. I mean, to say bullied is a little bit of an understatement because on account of the prison, because he can't escape. He's anyway. That reminded me a little bit of Death Warrant.
Again, like they just hit on all the right notes.
So Kreese does come in to see him where his dad missed it because of helping Miguel, which I'm sure is the thing we'll kind of come back to after this. But Kreese comes in and kind of is the father figure that shows up for him in that moment and sort of says because Robbie's been taught by Daniel the sort of defense only philosophy of Miyagi's karate, but he's being pursued, and I mean he's trying to defend himself. Is like that thing Miyagi says, like 1-to-1 option, 1-to-1 fight fine, but 5-to-1 is too much to expect from anyone, and that's what Robbie's facing in incarceration. And so when Kreese says, I know this is what you've been taught, but, this is where you are now, and this is not a tournament, which is funny. We hear that same episode as we see the scene from Karate Kid 2, where Chosen is, the thing where he challenges Daniel to a fight to the death. The thing that Mr. Miyagi tells him off to the side before Daniel kind of crosses the little bridge to get there and fight him is, he's like, this is not a tournament. This is for real. And that's what Kreese says to Robbie in prison. Basically, you're gonna have to strike first, and so now he's snaked his way.
Sound advice, like
it does seem to work out.
Because and Robbie was I feel like that kind of plays into that, like walking the earth like Kane from Kung Fu. He's just like he's trying to like. He's just that's exactly the reference. But he is just trying to find peace with his situation in prison, and he's his hand is being forced by these quote unquote bullies, sociopaths, who are just maliciously beating him up. Thankfully, that's as far as it goes.
I think that's
for a Netflix show. I'm surprised it didn't go any darker.
Me too. Thankfully, I was worried it might.
Those days were hard for Andy Dufresne. I think those were the hard for him.
Jesus.
So, I want to say the sisters didn't win that day, but I wouldn't be telling the truth.
Oh Lord.
Shit. But yeah, that really reminded me because he's in all white, right? Isn't his juvie uniform is all white?
Right, yeah.
Like it's like I felt like it was like symbolizing this. Like I'm trying to find peace with my situation, and I don't want to fight. I don't want to defend myself. I don't want to fight. I don't want to do any of that because all of that is what got me here. So now I need to just come to peace with like trying not this thing that I felt was steering me in the right direction and was leading me down to a good path, put me right here.
Yeah.
So now I need to come to peace with not having that thing anymore. Is what he was going for, I feel like. And
yeah, and in his mind, or I mean, in his experience or the way it was feeling, like his sensei, Daniel, turned him in. You had me turned in. You had me locked up. You think I can ever forget that? Forget. A little Bamba there. But, and then his dad, didn't show up for him. And even though he was trying to kind of get through to him, showing up like in the cafeteria and all that, he felt abandoned by everyone. And then, he was part of that romantic triangle with Sam and Miguel. And yeah, Robbie feels completely alone and he's at his most vulnerable when Kreese comes and peels to him.
But Johnny does show up as well to the cafeteria, so they get to talk over lunch. And there's the homeless lady. Hey, Blondie.
Yeah.
You eat that fruit cocktail?
Right.
Hey, you following me around?
Yeah.
I am glad they keep bringing her back at the best time. Isn't that great? Blondie.
But meanwhile, so there's all this stuff about these guys growing into senseis, Daniel and Johnny, and so to kind of pivot back to Johnny's story, initially like the family didn't want to let him even see Miguel. Carmen, Miguel's mom, was like turning him away, and he was literally like beating himself up in the bathroom so that he could be admitted to the hospital to see Miguel, and then Miguel turns him away, like in a very emotional way. But eventually, and I think it's even after Kreese appeals to Johnny. It's this thing before we see quite how as an audience you're led into quite how dark and nefarious Kreese's sort of underlying motivations are. For a minute, it does seem when he's helping Tori and stuff that we might, with the backstory we're getting from Vietnam, that Kreese might be a more sympathetic character than we had so far been shown. So he has this scene with Johnny in a bar after Johnny's been turned away from Miguel, where he's like, I know what you need. It's like, you're always going to be your teacher. And Johnny doesn't fall for it, but he uses that same line, I believe, ultimately when he kind of goes back to Miguel. And there's a great kind of arc that starts with Miguel in the hospital bed, and he wants his phone, and Johnny, by this point he's been embraced by the family a little bit and allowed to come visit. And Johnny's like, you want the phone? He just kind of shoves the table across the room. He's like, go get it. And
that's where he's like, asthma's for pussies.
Right, yeah.
Like, it's impossible. It's not medically.
Quiet!
Quiet! Yeah.
You didn't see the trailer, but this is the scene that the trailer is like leading up to, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
The trailer kind of ends on this scene.
Okay. I enjoyed that then too. So now we get kind of Johnny trying to help Miguel basically, like, and trying to motivate him in the ways that he can think of. And there's a one time he writes
all are from the 80s. All the ways are from the 80s.
It's something like he wrote on you see him at one point with a pad, and it's like how to fix Miguel's legs, and it's I think like Tony Robbins is on the list. LSD is left.
Like an old VHS.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And then we see him do things like he's got the fishing rod, and he's like there's dangling from the fishing rod like a Playboy or something.
1984 swimsuit edition, Sports Illustrated swimsuit. Playboy. It's not even porn. It's like
those were the best.
He's literally got a cell phone in his pocket that could get you the worst porn you'd ever see in your entire life, and he thinks the swimsuit edition is going to motivate Miguel.
And he says that too because he's like, I got the Vanna White or whatever, and he's like, I can just find this on my phone, right? He's like, babes look better in print.
That's right.
Oh, I forgot about that joke. That's such a good one. Oh man.
So that whole thing starts, which is such a delight. And there's that moment too where
Turns.
yeah, where Miguel gives Johnny some harsh truths. Like Miguel gives Johnny a quiet.
Yeah.
Which
Was shocking.
yeah. What brought that about? I'm struggling to remember the beat.
He wasn't standing up for Cobra Kai. He was letting he quit as a teacher on the dojo, and he's like, that's when they come to the realization that he needs to come on to a new name, a new dojo, because he gave up Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what this meeting was called.
Oh yeah, I put the meeting on our calendar as the Eagle Fang Karate Club meeting.
Eagles don't have any quiet.
Yeah, because I guess we see Miguel, like when he goes back to school, this is when he finds out that basically like Cobra Kai has gotten like that he was a part of got like super dark, and as Dimitri says later, like they've all become assholes and like a recruited assholes, and their sensei is the king asshole, and it's just like, so Miguel kind of starts to distance himself from that, and that's where it leads to him talking to Johnny about that, and them wanting to kind of form a new way of like a splinter karate, like a third karate dojo. And Johnny says that is it Johnny that says you don't have to have a dojo to be a dojo?
Yeah.
That's right.
Because he can't afford anything. Any of the places he looks at to rent, he can't afford.
Yeah.
And so I love that scene when he's like, so you're telling me that I could come here as much as I want and not going to cost me anything? Yeah. Yep. How about over there? Can I be over there? Anywhere you want, man. He's like, bitching. The guy's like, I'm gonna go back with my kids now. Like he wasn't even a representative of anything. There's a dad there.
Yeah, he's like, it's a public park. I gotta go see back to my family.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, so classic. It admits that all of this too. Like I love the D. Snyder. Like they went to this D. Snyder concert. Cool. And that's what ultimately like shows that he's gonna, for all of us, we get to see like Miguel is gonna get his legs back because the music like gets him tapping his foot, which I have to say has been another constant in this series where they really embrace that 80s music, you know, and it really is the sound, and then when it's the modern kids like that, the music changes. The soundtrack is really great for the show, for sure.
Just as Johnny gave Miguel hope, Miguel comes back and gives Johnny hope. I thought that was pretty touching.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
A student become teacher.
Right.
Yep,
yeah,
absolutely.
Well,
so
go ahead.
And that arc ends with the creation of the Eagle Fang Karate Club, right? Like the Eagle Fang Karate Dojo, where this is now the third faction of this turf war that's happening in the valley that's obsessed with karate.
Yeah. And then there's the side.
Everybody was kung fu fighting.
Yeah.
So, but as you were saying, like Miguel and Johnny kind of giving each other hope and kind of teaching each other, somewhere in all this where they're getting back, you know, in contact, and Johnny's trying to help him regain the use of his legs and in whatever kind of Johnny way he can think of. Ultimately, you know, being D. Snyder in a rock and roll show that gets him tapping his foot. I thought that was going to be a strip club, by the way. Like when they're in line kind of teasing it, I thought it was going to be a strip club.
Yeah.
But that was even better. But so in that, like they take a selfie, which Miguel takes a selfie with Johnny, and he's like, "Oh, I'll tag you." And Johnny's like, "What's this now?" And Johnny, who like when he's trying to get some money from Miguel, like tried to take his laptop back to the pawn shop where he got it because he didn't realize, I guess. He's like, this thing doesn't work anymore. And the guy's like, well, did you plug it in?
Like, yeah. He's like, plug it in. I thought it was wireless.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All this sort of Luddite stuff with Johnny is so great. And so there's this great thing where he's then getting on Facebook and then Allie, he finds Allie, messages Allie, and there's this back and forth with Allie. And Miguel's kind of helping him with that. I loved like Miguel explaining to him the etiquette of Facebook because he had that long.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
He had a super long thing. He had a super long thing written, and like Miguel was like, he looked at it and his first reaction was like, like laughed, and he's like, "You can't send this." Like,
Yeah, because Allie's like,
You
"How
can't send that.
are you? Your profile's kind of sparse, and they're like, what are you up to?" And Johnny typed a book.
He had a book written, and he's like, "You're not going to send that, right?" Like, and this in this arc, this is the comic relief of this arc. Is Miguel trying to help Johnny, like, prepare this perfect message back to Allie.
Yeah.
But the shirtless photos were
right, because
really
they needed photos too.
Because you knew that those were something that he used back in the day to get jobs, like headshots or whatever.
Yeah,
headshots. Yeah.
When Miguel's like, "You got pictures?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I got pictures." The bride and I are both like, he's going off to get physical prints, and like,
that's right.
Then he comes back with like Moto, I think, just said it's basically it's obviously sort of modeling or actor headshots that William Zabka must have had from the 80s. So he's got like his shirt off and he's like glistening.
How about one with your shirt on?
Yeah.
Do you have any with your shirt on? Well, not really. It's like just making fun of himself.
And so I think that they decide that they need to take some new ones. And so Johnny's like, well, we'll see the stuff that Allie's pictures, what stuff she's doing in her pictures, and we'll just do that.
Literally, like,
that's right.
And just copies
pet
everything. They're like, I love the sushi. He orders like $80 in sushi and like doesn't even eat
it. Yeah, that's right. Spits it out and got the photo. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man,
the photos were fucking. Those were funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. All that whole montage is just so good. But again, so to like come back to what I was referencing way early, like 3 hours ago in this conversation, this shows like, so that's all like this harebrained, just like really campy. Johnny's just a dumb jock who never progressed past 1984 for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, and that joke is kind of, I think they even acknowledge like that's kind of wearing thin. Like if that's all they ever keep the character, like it's not going to go anywhere. And every time it would start to feel like that, that's when they really show like this guy's a great actor and this is a character with depth, because that all of that was just for a reply to a message. And instead of writing a big book that's just like verbal diarrhea, or doing what Miguel tells him, like just say sup or whatever, he writes this heartfelt response that's just not Johnny. Like that doesn't illustrate anything that we just saw for the last 20 minutes this guy doing. It's genuine, heartfelt, and like, I thought I could change these kids, but it turns out they actually changed me. And like, and he ends it with like, things are going pretty good, and because he really feels like his life is turning around. We'll ignore the fact that his son is rotting in jail still, and not like, so, but it's this awesome monologue and a great,
development.
And that just like really shows like, no, like this guy really has his head wrapped around this character very well and is just executing it flawlessly. And then he deletes all of it and writes, "Hey, what's up? Like nothing much. How you doing? Whatever."
I think just like you with the letter U, even or something like that.
Yeah. So, this leads to. I thought so. I love the stuff with Allie. All of that was another. Ultimately, we find out that Allie is in. Not only did they get the rights to show images of Elizabeth Shue this time, they also. She says, "I'm in town. Do you want to meet for lunch?" Right after he just finally seals the deal with Miguel's mom, like
which was a big moment, right?
Yeah. Because she's like, you really did save my son, and she, you really have helped him all these time, and you really feel this again. He has this genuine connection with her, and you're like, yeah, things are going his way. And then Allie instantly replies and is like, "Hey, let's get lunch." And you're like, "Fuck, don't fuck this up, Johnny! Like, don't be a dick."
Yeah.
And but I love the whole Elizabeth Shue episode. It felt a little weird when all four of them were together.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
I don't know if that's because they were doing the awkwardness perfectly, or if I'm just like, what the hell are they doing? I don't know. It just felt weird, but all of it was great.
It was a lot of fun to have her back, and then again, she's kind of like Kumiko, it's like the one with her, even though she's going through a divorce or whatever, the one with the head on her shoulders, or giving good life advice and giving them direction. And you guys are a
Yep.
lot more alike than you are different,
Yeah.
and not much has changed. But yeah, I guess that was the message that they kind of got, was you're a lot more alike than different. By
Right.
But yeah, meeting up at the country club again, and this time Johnny's got the white jacket
Yeah.
on instead of
Yeah.
Daniel and the spaghetti. Like that was really funny. And
Yeah, that
all
whole
that.
reverse, like so when they do get together, like Johnny and Allie, they basically do, even with the song from Karate Kid, they did the reverse of like the montage. A lot of even the same activities and games at golf and stuff. Like they play the same song, and it's just, instead of it being Daniel, it's Johnny, and instead of Allie being like 20, she's whatever she is now. I looked it up. Elizabeth Shue was like 56 when they shot that.
Oh man.
Ralph Macchio, is 59. I didn't get to how old Billy Zabka is, but anyway, so they did sort of feel like they were just behaving like kids, and then they really play that thing beat for beat right up to the moment where they almost kiss. And at this point, we as the audience, don't want him to do that, I think, because we want things to work out with Carmen, because they seem to handle that well, even though she, in the morning, it's just like, after they have slept together, she's like, I don't know how this works. You're my son's sensei and all this, but you get the sense that it's like a good thing and it's going to work out, and they're being adults. And Johnny seems to, like, for all that they play him to be kind of a dim-witted, like ill-informed guy, he seems to kind of be putting some things together, and that the Facebook message he doesn't send to Allie sort of helps clarify maybe what he's thinking. And but anyway, so it's a really fun scene to see them together. They almost kiss, and then they decide, though, to keep, I think she just gets a call and she has to go see her parents, and then invites him along, and it turns out to be the country club. And there is another reverse, just like Moto was saying, like in Karate Kid, when Daniel goes to the country club to meet up with Allie, he sees her and Johnny together dancing, which we realized she wasn't really wanting to happen, and ultimately even punches him once Daniel has turned away. But then, Daniel sees that and is upset, and he gets like spaghetti spilled on him and humiliated. And I think that episode ends with Johnny seeing Daniel and Allie just before talking at the country club. So it's a surprise for us, the audience. But then they turn that on its head beautifully, where Johnny, when they do start the next episode, we get the backstory that they have just they just, like, Daniel's getting a drink, turns around and is like, holy shit, my high school girlfriend. And the moment Johnny sees is simply them just being like, oh my gosh, hi, how are you after 30 years? And then he almost gets something spilled on him, but he's like, whoa, hold on here. This is white. You think I want to be wearing that food?
Yeah.
And they were off. I really enjoyed that scene too. It was kind of odd. I felt as much as I responded unexpectedly, like, I don't know, well or whatever, to Kumiko's presence, Allie was awkward to me. Like, the whole thing, like, Elizabeth Shue was just weird. And and so I just wanted to tell you this because you guys wouldn't necessarily know. So I was feeling that, and we'll probably talk about it a little bit more, but I ended up hearing her on what used to be the Nerdist podcast, the ID10T podcast, which turned out to have been her first podcast ever. She's on to promote Cobra Kai. And I don't know what I thought. And then I felt she was kind of awkward on the show. But I'm happy to report, is as charming and humble, as down to earth as can be. I was truly floored by, like, how she's just, I don't know what I expected. And I thought she maybe didn't want to be in Karate Kid 2 and, like, distance herself from the whole thing. But they don't dish on that completely.
She hit, like, Best Supporting Actress nomination for Leaving Las Vegas. Like, I feel like that was, like, like highest point of her career, right?
Yeah, and she talks about some of that too, and like kind of how her that humbling journey. I think most people go through and maturing. She's like, there was a point where she talks about like when she first was starting acting, she was really not like, she didn't have a publicist. She was basically excited about things that made her brothers think it was cool. And she's like, when I got to do Cocktail Tom Cruise, like my brothers were psyched, man. And so, but she's like, I got to a place though where I kind of I expected too much, and but yeah, and it was, so she doesn't completely dish about the Karate Kid, why she wasn't in it, but she did say that like she basically let on that maybe she would have liked to have been. And
she got Back to the Future too.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. She was the girl from Back to the Future.
Yeah. Yes. Nicely done. Yeah. But so it was really nice to hear that interview. And when I rewatched some of the series Cobra Kai last night, having seen that, it hit me a little differently. But so among the many other nice things she said she loved the experience, and that the guys, Billy and Ralph were lovely human beings. And then she said too, she got like really emotional saying goodbye to Daniel's character, like in real life. She was like, I didn't expect it, but it really hit me. And when I watched it again, I was like, you can see that happen actually on camera. Anyway, so that was really nice. And I did love the comedy of that scene, like when Amanda's like, what I walk into here? And then you get sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, her character totally turned around for me this season.
Yeah.
I think that conversation with Kreese, like, really helped sell her character for me.
That was huge.
What's funny is I did some you talk about research. I got on IMDb and looked her up, and then looked Sam up just to see like their actual age difference. And for her to be in real life to actually be Sam's mother, she would have had her at 15.
Oh my God.
Like that's how close in age they are. Isn't that crazy?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Because Sam, I think Sam was born in 1996, so she's like 24.
Oh, okay. Wow, I wouldn't even have thought that, but
yeah. So
that's wild. And
but yeah,
we don't need to talk about it too much. But the scene where basically the karate tournament is going to be canceled. I do love that.
Yeah.
Where they're like something about not fostering a community of violence in the valley. They're making fun of it, and then Sam makes it a passion and plea, and I think Miguel to keep it happening.
Miguel is who ultimately saves it, because like Kreese is coming down and he's trying to use his service time and his as a veteran influence, and like totally being like the sweet innocent old man. He's trying to portray himself as a Mr. Miyagi to try to sway. And it is ultimately Miguel like comes and gives a big speech about what it means as a kid for this tournament and why it's so important. And that's awesome. All of that is great. But this helped plant that seed that maybe this season is not going to end with a giant like brawl.
Right. Oh yeah.
Because I thought like they're either going to. Initially, I was like, "Oh, there's not going to be a giant brawl. It's just going to be a tournament ending." And then, you realize where this is happening in the episodes and how many episodes you have left, you're like, "Oh shit, they better get there quick." And the next thing you know, you only got like 2 episodes left, and you're like, "It's going to be a cliffhanger. There's not going to be any fight at all." And I feel like this scene, this thread of like maybe we're going to cancel the tournament. Oh, we saved the tournament. Help plant that seed that. Because I feel like the culminating fight just comes out of nowhere.
Literally,
It goes from 0 to 100 miles an hour. And up to that point, I was like, we're going to get through this whole fucking episode, and there's not going to be a big-ass fight like every season has ended so far. They all of this amazing setup that they did, and they're going to blow it in the foot at the last second. Like, we need a big fight. Like, we need it. And they deliver.
Yeah.
But the thread of like possibly canceling the tournament is help plant that seed. Like either we're not going to get a big fight and it's just going to be a tournament, which ultimately leads to like there's going to be nothing. And they did a good job of like of toying with that expectation that they established with the first 2 seasons, I felt like, which was nice.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize this till you're saying it, but it's like it's the opposite of Karate Kid 1 with what Miyagi negotiates to basically prevent Daniel from continuing to get his ass kicked, which is like, he just sees the poster and he's like, all right, why don't we just fight in the tournament, and then you got to leave him alone in the meantime, and it gives him time to train and just gives him all that. But it's the opposite with Kreese. Like, Kreese, I don't know what it was that happened, whether it was Amanda slugging him or whatever, but he says that line that he threatens Miyagi with in Karate Kid 1, where he's like, if you don't show, then it's open season on him, meaning Daniel, and you, Mr. Miyagi. Because Kreese says that to somebody, and that's in the 3rd season of the Cobra Kai here. And that's the way Cobra Kai is behaving. It's just like all bets are off, constantly like attacking the Miyagi-Do, but the Miyagi-Do people are attacking them as well. But the reason I brought up the town hall thing is because that was my other favorite Amanda moment, where she calls him a piece of shit and then gets thrown out.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you,
That's
Netflix.
right.
Thank you, Netflix.
She has a what do they call that? The order where you can't come around them.
Oh yeah, restriction or
restraining
order. Yeah,
restraining order. That's it. But I guess that seed of doubt, and then the surprise fight is more of a surprise, and it's like, we're at your house, motherfucker.
Yeah,
because there's it caught me so off guard, and because I was so committed to, because we get to the last episode, they've sealed up Kreese's backstory at that point. They have established that there's going to be a tournament, and that's where shit's all going to go down. And they get to that last episode, and you're like, yeah, there's not going to be any big fucking fight. And you realize all along that they've been building toward this moment where it's going to be the kids that are going to bring the 2 dojos together. That's going to bring Eagle Fang and Miyagi-Do together. And that's Sam's plan. Sam and Miguel's plan, right? Like, we're going to have our 2 dojos meet up, tell everybody we're having a kegger. But really what we want everybody to do is to work on our respective senseis to convince them that we have to combine dojos, right? And it gets to that point, and then all of a sudden you just, this is also too where you know that they're embracing more of the kung fu philosophy versus like real world drama philosophy, because it's like, this happens in like the LaRusso's home.
Yeah.
The front door gets kicked fucking in. And like Dave just said about how, all bets are off with Cobra Kai. Like, they don't care about laws or rules or any of that. Like, these kids kick their way into this house and literally just start beating. It would assume to the death. One would assume to the death.
They threw that little kid through the window. Like, that's how it starts.
Yeah.
Like, you hear a cat noise, and then they throw the smallest kid like through the kitchen window.
Yeah.
Well, think about Karate Kid 2. There was some of that violence that was over the top. You had a spear to Miyagi's throat, Daniel's throat, and they were breaking into the house there and trashing the place. And so and that was kind of uncomfortable back then with Karate Kid 2. And now they brought some of that element in.
And I feel like, thinking about it more, that they're that kind of, that Chosen's like just relentless pursuit of Daniel, and that like that is like Tori's relentless pursuit of Sam, and like her motivation. I don't, that didn't work for me too much. Tori's like, she's just like murderous. Like, why is she murderous toward her?
Well, but again, like they do a great job of making a character appear to be 2-dimensional, but there's like just saving that depth. I feel like we just don't know the whole story yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think I felt like they were working on it and showing us her home life and all this, but that whatever the switch, she's just like, she's single-minded about.
Oh man, it would totally make sense if she is the daughter from the girl from Karate Kid 3, because then she would be like, if Daniel would have married my mom, she wouldn't be poor and I could be rich. You know what I mean? Like, because he had no interest in her being a love. Maybe they're going to make it like she did have a crush on Daniel's son, like back in 3.
That was the girl that was from Ohio, wasn't she?
Kimber, or no, what was, I can't remember her name. Jessica? I don't know. The Potter.
Ohio. Yeah.
Nice.
And Oh, that would be her motivation if she has this sick fantasy, like if Daniel had not scorned her mother back then, she could be in Sam's position, and that's why she hates her so much.
Yeah. Well, and of
Like
course
the
there is the
Joker.
thing with Sam
Yeah, like the
having oh shit, yeah. Well, yeah, there's the romantic love triangle thing, but and then of course this intense, like, all out kung fu hustle kind of fight that is at once like really heightened in terms of being just over the top in terms of like it was really stylized. It's both that, but it also is somehow terrifying and real. That's the weird like tonal thing where it's like I don't know what to think. And then they'll cut back to like the country club with the sort of comedy of Allie being like, wait, so you like she recounts some of the beats of the early seasons, and you're just like, it's hilarious to hear her lay it out. Like, so you did this, and then you did this, and oh my god, what now? And Amanda's like, and they're all kind of owning up to just like, wow, we were just kids back then. And even Amanda's like a little drunk. She's like, yeah, my head was so far up my ass back then, it was coming out my mouth. I could see out my mouth. And she's like, that even makes sense. But Allie kind of does this thing for Daniel and Johnny ultimately that it seems like Kumiko put in place for Daniel and Chosen, which where she kind of exposed or just like kind of making fun of them both. And I don't know, with her being the kind of buffer, they seem to see each other in a way they hadn't quite been able to the point where she and it does, there's just like back and forth that is that the beats of it did feel, I thought it was a joke that they were just throwing cliches back and forth between like Elizabeth Shue and Johnny or whatever. But she was saying, I mean, she starts with the thing about the truth, like that it's not just, she's like, you know, you see your side and you see your side, but then there's the truth in the middle. And, but then it's just like, anyway, it goes back and forth. But they do seem that she does seem to get through to them. And it is kind of fun and charming. And I think when we last see Daniel, he's like, Merry Christmas, Johnny. And Johnny's like, Merry Christmas, LaRusso, Daniel. And you can tell that there's like something a little different. And then wrap it up so beautifully with like Johnny saying goodbye to Allie, and he gives her that hug and he's like, I needed this. Oh shit, why is that? It's really sweet. And but like when Johnny, there's a point in their date or whatever where Johnny apologizes to her that is like, it just seemed like a diagram of an apology. I was like, I need to fucking make note of like how a grown ass man apologizes. I mean, Johnny does such great work in that storyline, and even though there's a little awkward, it really pays off nicely.
Well, and I think the best part about that is, again, how this show acknowledges that it's cliche by breaking away from them, because you think Johnny's this big dumb asshole. He's going to try to kiss Elizabeth Shue because they've had this amazing day and she's gotten through to him. And there's the moment where you see he's gonna, and like even not even from earlier where they were almost kissed earlier. It's outside the country club. Like when this night is wrapping up.
Yeah.
And like it's not that he's gonna make a move. It's like he's questioning, should we? Like that's all what I felt like he's debating, his character's debating. And she has this beautiful moment where it's like, this was just a great day and it can just be a great day. And where they don't force that, well, now we need to be a love interest and create a love triangle between you and Carmen and have this big mess, you know,
a little more real life.
Yeah. Like I think adult is the best way to say it. It's just it's a very true grown up way of handling that situation. Like we had our moment. It was a long time ago. It didn't happen. This was a lot of fun to reminisce.
Yeah.
But it would never work out. You know what I mean? Like it would never, it's never going to go beyond this. It was just a really fun day to reminisce on that time that we had.
Yeah.
Satisfying.
Yeah.
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 It was a very grown-up way they handled it that did not go the way you thought it would if it would have been cliche.
Yeah, she sort of helps them see that they've both been living in the past. Instead of realizing that, they're maybe similar and don't like the things about the other that maybe remind them of things they don't like about themselves. She really lends them a perspective that nobody else probably could. And Yeah, it was
And
really nice.
It plants the seed for that. What the kids were trying to do by combining the two dojos, I think Elizabeth Shue already had that ball rolling, but and then the major fight at the LaRusso's house really is what seals the deal. Like it finally is like to Johnny and Daniel, like this is the only way that we're gonna get rid of Kreese.
Yeah,
and
so
they
sorry,
like do something good. And that last fucking shot, man, it was so powerful for me. And so like the way it was oversaturated, so like all the whites were a little like just a little too white and like bled out a little bit.
It was dreamy.
Yes, thank you. Ethereal or dreamy, and like and when he comes around the corner and just like stands there and there's enough space between them and they're in front of their kids, and like it was a great payoff that they had been building on since the first episode of the season. It is intelligently put together for what it is. I feel it's at a much higher level than what the surface shows, of a television show. So,
and of course, they had the final fight with Kreese too. Kreese.
I don't want to glaze over that.
No, we're going to have the showdown, and you're not going to be able to get away from me. And it's the fathers basically is the best way of putting it, which is different. Yes, instead of saying Daniel or Johnny, the fathers.
Yeah, that's right.
Avenge their children against Kreese, and you get to see Johnny fight Kreese, which we really, I don't know.
Not really. We haven't. I don't think we quite saw it. Never to this extent. Because that occurred to me too.
Out and like a long shot. There was a long one. That one really long shot there, where they do that creative shooting. And then Kreese is he's choking him just like he had him before in the parking lot, and of course, just like every good kung fu movie is like, what about take a 45 and bang? And he gets the weapon. He's like, no, drop the weapon. It's like, this is just karate.
Right.
Yeah.
It's such a great payoff. Right. Because
Daniel gets to fight Kreese.
Yeah. Because we have that great moment where we're on a high. Yeah.
Robbie's actually the one to interrupt.
Yep.
And that's where it's like, holy shit, this is Star Wars.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
I thought that too. And that's where like whatever the plotting they had to do to get to this point, like it all pays, like all of the threads converge, all of the history we're getting with Kreese and how he kind of became who he became, and everything that happened with all of the different characters. Like I was so I forgot all about the tournament because I was so invested in like everybody's romantic life. And so even everything happened with Allie and that whole conversation. And then I like too how Amanda's clocking it. She's like, so that's 2 hugs for Hallie, I see. And he's like, I got some more left. Let's go home and get into some trouble. And then we were like, oh yeah, at their house, it's been fucking Armageddon. And remember, they're going home to that. And then Johnny's like got clarity about, what he wants, and that's Carmen. And so he's even they're playing fucking Journey, like, I come to you. Yeah. So like they ponied up for that song, and Johnny's like kind of walking with his black top and slacks and white jacket, and talking to himself about what he's going to say to Carmen. And he's like, I love you. And then he opens the door and her face is ashen, and revealed to see Miguel like in a bad way from the fight at the LaRusso's. Yeah. And Johnny's like, what happened? And then he fucking goes to confront Kreese, and Robbie's there, and Robbie now is fully indoctrinated to Kreese to the point where like it feels like that scene in Return of the Jedi where you got father and son before the Emperor, and Kreese is like the Emperor, and Robbie's the only one wearing a white gi, and Johnny just so happens to have taken off his white coat and is wearing all black. And I even got like excited because Johnny's like Ki is this kind of like, it's a distinctive sound, and to hear him using that, just going off on Kreese, was exciting. And then like Robbie's trying to, because at some point Kreese or Johnny picks up the sai, and you think he's gonna maybe stab Kreese or do something really Rash and Robbie's like, no, that's not the way. And then Johnny has to try to not fight Robbie. It's wild. And then all throughout this, they're intercutting with basically the turning point for Kreese in Vietnam, where he makes the choice really to kind of like whether he's going to go to the dark side. That was one thing we didn't talk too much, but you see that. I mean, when we first meet Kreese in the diner, like, turns out he already knows how to fight pretty well, but we see in Vietnam how he's kind of taught a particular kind of martial arts, and really the
Tong Soo Do. I remember Tong Soo Do.
I have to look into that.
And I was just thinking, because they end up fighting to the death there in the snake pit, where they show where the cobras come from with the snakes, which was also the Vikings or something. Anyways, Johnny decides not to do that when they have the opportunity. So he's going a different way, but at the same time, Kreese was taking on his sergeant in the army, or Green Beret Army, where he turned his back on him and said, he needs to the death or whatever, to the snake pit with the sergeant who turned his back on him. So the parallels between that storyline with Johnny and Kreese and his sergeant.
And they're literally intercutting those in the fight. Like, this is kind of what's going on in Kreese's mind and all this, and when that like plays itself out, or like, how does that? Oh, Robbie ends up like Johnny's like not fighting him, but nonetheless, and trying to get out of the way or something like that. Robbie runs into a locker and is hurt, and then then suddenly Daniel shows up, and that I'll admit too, like, Ralph Macchio doesn't always. It does something not always great about Daniel as an adult character. I think this season better than a lot of times with some of those grounded Japan sequences and stuff. But that moment where he's like, "You sent them to my house," worked for me. And then he the whole thing comes back too with Kreese being like, that defense only shit's not gonna work in this situation, motherfucker. And he's like, "Good thing that's not," And we know, like, that Chosen showed him some of these other more offensive
technique that he didn't know, like the new crane technique, or the drum roll technique, or
and this thing though that could kind of
this one.
And so that was exciting. Then you see Daniel fight Kreese. It's it was a hell of a scene, really. That all coming together like that.
Well, it's amazing that they crammed in both of those epic fights in the same episode. So they really paid off on that. Like, the big fight also spread into the adults now having a big fight, and and Kreese realizes after that fight that holy shit, instead of splitting them apart, I actually drove them together, and I am no match against both of them together.
Gonna need some help.
Which leads to his phone call that
an old war buddy
that he makes. His old war buddy. Like, it is exciting, and I like that they did not get to the tournament. So season 4 is gonna either start with or lead to that tournament.
Training.
Lots of training, and
well, it's unexpected too, because like the stakes for that scene where they're all fighting Kreese are so high, and then like Kreese goes through a window, and I think he's got the glass held on Daniel. Is that right?
Yeah, he's ready.
To cut Daniel, and then Daniel's, I don't think he's got all his full mind there, and I think he might do something rash, and then he's snapped out of it by his daughter showing up and calling out to him, and kind of, it doesn't get quite as dark as you think it might, or like it did with, the kids earlier with the break into the arm, and then there is, we kind of touched on it, but there is, in the big fight, Hawk comes around and kind of comes back to defend Dimitri and stuff, which is nice to see, to wrap that up. But so then it's kind of interesting, after all of this, like, almost life or death stuff, Kreese is like, let's settle this the old-fashioned way. Tournament.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny that he's the one to suggest that. And then, we know that's what it's leading to. And then, where does the music start? I just watched it last night, but, it's with him. So this is the last bit of the Vietnam piece that kind of, so we see where Kreese is sort of made into Kreese in Vietnam, essentially. And even the love interest that he saved in the diner, had died at some point while he was over there, and they kept him from that. This particular hard-ass sergeant or whatever kept it from him coming into this important mission because he didn't want him to be distracted and potentially risk people's lives. And ultimately, Kreese, like, they got captured in Vietnam because Kreese didn't want to accidentally, or didn't want there to be collateral damage of like one of his comrades, essentially. And we're shown these two friends of his, and we're shown them in a picture, and one of them looks exactly like Terry Silver from Karate Kid 3. Like, he's got the ponytail, the big grin. He even does like a laugh that's similar, I felt. And then there's this other guy that you don't really even pay much attention to, but at a certain point early in the season, the one you think is Terry Silver, the one I thought was Terry Silver, gets shot in the head at gunpoint when they get taken into captivity. And this is when they do the same thing. So the payoff at the end is essentially that the other friend of his was afraid to do, it's kind of like in Deer Hunter where they're doing the Russian roulette thing, would it be the Viet Cong? Is that right? That kind of are basically for their own amusement, making their American captives like do horrendous thing for their entertainment. So in Deer Hunter, it was Russian roulette. In Cobra Kai, it's basically they're taking them out to fight each other over what we learn is the pit of snakes. And so this one like other friend of Kreese's is terrified, and so Kreese decides to go out in his stead. And so I'm watching that whole time because I knew from Karate Kid 3 that he's like Terry Silver is like, you saved my life in Vietnam. And so this turns this meek guy who didn't necessarily look like Terry Silver, turns out, they don't tell us, but if you're familiar, you put it together and be like, aha. So when Kreese, like after the fight, they've kind of done that misleading thing. So by that point I put it together. It's like, that's Terry Silver, the other guy in the photo. And he's like, he
shows like he's going to manipulate Terry Silver into being
he calls him the same way
through his through his I saved you. Yeah. So remember all those good things I did for you, he's his first like victim of being Kreese,
Yeah. Well, except for Terry Silver, was meek and whatever in Vietnam, but he's a son of a bitch if you know Karate Kid 3, because when after the fallout of the 1984 tournament or 5 where Kreese is disgraced, like, we'll get into it next year or whatever, but like watch Karate Kid 3 basically, of course, and for that backstory, and who he's reaching out to is like maybe worse than Kreese himself.
Mm-hmm. It's literally to illustrate that this is a cycle. Like he looks for like the weak kids and then builds them up.
Oh shit!
So they like put him on a pedestal.
Yeah, he basically created Terry Silver as well, but way back then.
I didn't even thought Terry Silver's got the checkbook. He's like his first victim. He's also Cobra Kai, keeping Cobra Kai alive. Cobra Kai never dies.
I think they probably started it together. Cobra Kai, like.
He probably said, like, you taught me all this stuff and you did all these things. I think you could really do that for kids. And like, I could see all of this happening, and Kreese, like, no, I wouldn't want to take your money. Like, but he totally does want to take his money.
Yeah.
And being Kreese and doing that with Tony Silver and like, or is it Tony or Terry?
Terry, and it's Silver with an ER, but the way he pronounces it sounds like Silva. Yeah, I looked it up because I never knew which to say, but
thanks.
He's got that Steven Seagal ponytail.
But I think, and you can see how like that's what Johnny did with Miguel, right? And then that's what Johnny and Kreese did with all of the other kids. Is like they find those weak ones, so that way when they give them these powers and these tools, they have them up on a pedestal, like they're. Yeah. And it's a cycle. It's a repeating cycle over and over and over again. In a way, that's what Kreese's commanding officer did to him, right? And so he's just going to continue that cycle down. It's this cycle of abuse down and power. And
we're seeing now the only thing to break that cycle is compassion. Like we saw it with Chosen, and we saw it now a little bit between Johnny and Daniel. And when Kreese is on the phone and he's calling Terry Silva. You hear the strains, the familiar strains of what turns out to be In the Air Tonight, like a cover of In the Air Tonight, which is so badass.
Right.
As all of everybody who's not essentially the new like super evil Cobra Kai students are all convening in the Mr. Miyagi's old house in the backyard, like all kind of it's building and the music is building, and right when the fucking drums kick in, Johnny comes around the corner just like you mentioned and stands next to Daniel, and they bow to each other. Oh,
it's so good.
It's so good.
Honestly, Christos doesn't know it yet, but he sealed his fate by forcing them together. So I'm sure it will get worse for them before it gets better, but ultimately, it's
I hope
set
so.
up perfectly.
The only tragedy is we have to wait another year.
At least,
right? Like I could see this easily going 5, maybe 6 seasons. I feel like if it went any deeper than that, it would take they would have to drastically change their format, or
it's just like Star Wars.
Exactly.
Star Wars. Well, exactly. Star Wars went to 9, right?
Yep. And now beyond, of course. But I'm
might
heartened.
try to do that.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know.
I'm heartened with what you said, like Moto earlier about having. It's like, however we have to truncate it, we do know where we want it to end up. I think that is encouraging.
And it's in their contract clause, whatever.
Oh,
they get to do it. They get to wrap up that way. Right?
That's great.
Wrap up their way. That was smart. Awesome. And man, they just took Karate Kid was a trilogy, and a great. I don't know if you compare it to Back to the Future or what trilogy to compare it to, but it stood pretty well. And then these guys come and do this. It's like, thank you. This was so fun. Laugh, cry, or just, the fighting. It was just satisfied a lot of needs, nostalgia, and building upon. It was great visuals, great music.
You wasted no time. You were like January 2nd. You're like, episode 4, hit me in the field. Like, you wasted no time. I'm like,
I could have got to it the day before. We actually had some time. They gave us 4 days off. I mean, we were getting 1 day off a week.
Yeah.
These long ass days. And then we got 4 days off. And it was part of that stretch. And I was like, well, if I'm going to watch this, it'll be right now. And actually, I'm surprised I didn't get it the day one, on the first.
Yeah. It was just so funny. You're just out of nowhere. Episode 4, hit me in the field. Like, shit, I got to start the show.
Oh, see, now knowing what episode 4 is. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, that was it, man. I was like, oh my gosh, it's hitting me in the feels.
Yeah.
It is a great show, especially if you're a huge fan of Karate Kid, that if you have not experienced it, coming to Netflix, I think, is the greatest thing that could have happened to the show. It was dying on YouTube. And I think they knew that. I think all parties knew that. And kudos to Netflix for realizing there's something there. Let's bring that over.
Thanks for having me on again, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Oh, yeah, it's good.
You don't have to thank. I say it every time, but you don't have to thank us. You're part of the cast, man. You come on anytime you want.
Yeah.
And you're the Cobra Kai super fan. I think even at least in terms of you're on it before us all, and your enthusiasm really. I think because I'm sure I would watch it, but it does sometimes take that enthusiasm of someone else. I was certainly interested in Cobra Kai 3, but when the first couple episodes or whatever were not necessarily grabbing me, it was great to hear your. Yeah. It's fun to have something to geek out on together.
I think you nailed it on the head. It's just a matter of investment as we get older. It's like, what do I want to invest my time in? Mm-hmm. And that's when we're really depending on our peers to say, oh, this is fucking awesome, or no, don't bother with it.
People that know your taste and stuff. And I'm getting The Mandalorian next. That's the next one I'm going to binge.
Oh, awesome.
I get 2 days off after this. I might get to that.
Yeah. Avoid the last episode of Long Walk Short Drink until you watch it.
I listened.
No. Did you stop at a certain point?
I got a vibe of what kind of is going to happen, but I don't know exactly. So.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So anyways, no. Thanks so much, both of you. This has been a great conversation.
Likewise, you both.
Same here.
Deepen my appreciation of the show already, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate you and this time to geek out together on this stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, I
Absolutely.
enjoyed the conversation and time together.
All right. Well, I'm going to get off here, you guys. Maybe make a pinball deal. Other than that,
Yeah.
Excellent.
you guys have some fun and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you. Yep.
All right, take
Be
care.
well.
Thank you.
Maybe the force be with you.
Have a great day.
All right. Bye, guys. And there it is. Long Walk Short Drink, episode 88. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you to Moto for our rockin' theme music. Thank you to Palmer for being Palmer. Thank you for subscribing on your podcast platform of choice and for telling anyone you think might enjoy our show about it. Head over to LWSD Pod if that interests you, or LWSD Pod on Twitter, lwsdpod@gmail.com for encouragement. Send it to the internet. All right, until next time, cheers, Long Walkers.